Good evening, everyone. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening. I want to welcome you to the July 22nd, 2024 zoning hearing master hearing. My name is Susan Finch, and I'll be presiding as the hearing master over this evening's cases. Let me start by introducing Ms. Michelle Heinrich. She's with the Development Services Department. She's at the end of the dais, and she will introduce other staff members as well as go over any changes we have to tonight's agenda. Ms. Heinrich.
Good evening, Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. We have Cameron Clark with the County Attorney's Office to my left, and then to his left, Jillian Macy with the Planning Commission. And I do have one unpublished change to the agenda that would require you to make a determination on the continuance, and that is agenda page 6, item C1, 24-0775. Todd Pressman is the applicant, and he is requesting continuance to the September 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing.
All right, Mr. Pressman, come forward. Give us your name and address and the reason for the continuance request, please.
Thank you, Hearing Officer. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg. We've developed quite a long list of folks with concerns, and we also developed quite a long list of concerns from county traffic and FDOT traffic. So we have just recently brought on a transportation consultant, and we're starting some of those discussions, as well as looking at a lot of different ways we can adjust the traffic. So we thought 60 days was probably appropriate. I did reach out to the Lutz HOA group, Lutz Association group, make them aware that I was making this request this evening.
All right. Let me ask if there is anyone in the audience, either in the room or online, that would like to speak to the continuance only, not the merits of the case, but the continuance only of item C1, rezoning PD 24-0775. All right. Seeing no one, we'll continue that case to RZ PD 24-0775 to September 16th, 2024 at the 6 p.m. zoning hearing master hearing. Thank you. Ms. Heinrich, please continue.
I'll now go over the withdrawals and continuances found in the agenda. The first one is item A1, PD 24-0238. This application is being continued by staff to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A2, Major Mod 24-0368. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A3, Major Mod 24-0384. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A4, Major Mod 24-0397. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A5, Major Mod 24-0402. This application is being continued by the applicant to the September 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A6, PD 24-0459. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A7, Major Mod 24-0468. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A8, PD 24-0537. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A9, PD 24-0579. This application is being continued by staff to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A10, PD 24-0591. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A11, Major Mod 24-0674. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A12, Major Mod 24-0675. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A13, Major Mod 24-0677. This application is being continued by the applicant to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A14, PD 24-0679. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A15, PD 24-0697. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A16, Standard Rezoning 24-0725. This application is being continued by the applicant to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A17, Standard Rezoning 24-0732. This application has been withdrawn by the applicant from the hearing process. Item A18, Standard Rezoning 24-0862. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A19, Standard Rezoning 24-0877. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A20, Standard Rezoning 24-0878. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the August 19th, 2024 ZHM hearing, and that concludes all the withdrawals and continuances.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let me start by going over our hearing procedures for tonight's agenda. Our hearing today consists of agenda items that require a public hearing by a zoning hearing master. I'll conduct a hearing on each agenda item and will file a recommendation within 15 business days following tonight's hearing. Those recommendations are then sent to the Board of County Commissioners, who will make the final decision on each agenda item. Our hearing tonight is informal. I'll ask questions related to the scope of direct testimony. I may call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate, and I'll decide all questions of procedure. I'll take evidence, but will exclude evidence that is irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious. Evidence may be presented in written form, and all testimony must be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used to supplement or explain other evidence, but shall not be sufficient alone to support a finding by me unless it be admissible in over objections in a civil action. Our order of presentation tonight is as follows. Ms. Heinrich of the Development Services Department will make a brief introduction for each agenda item. The applicant goes next. The applicant goes first, and their witnesses. They have 15 minutes total to make their presentation. Then we go back to Development Services, to the staff planner that was assigned the case. They have 5 minutes to report on the county's findings. Next up is the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission also has 5 minutes to present their findings regarding consistency with the county's comprehensive plan. Then we'll go to proponents, anyone who would like to speak in favor of an application. All total, 15 minutes. The same is true next when we go to opponents, anyone who would like to speak against an application. Everyone combined, 15 minutes. We'll then circle back to the Development Services Department, see if they have any comments or questions based on tonight's testimony for 5 minutes. And then finally, the applicant has the last word with 5 minutes for rebuttal to address any items that they'd like before we close the case. Regarding the time for proponents and opponents, I don't think we'll have this issue, but let me just go over it. We have people that are participating with this hearing in the room, and we also have people that are participating online. So when it's time for those to speak either for or against an application, I'll ask everyone to please give me a show of hands, and we will count both in room and online how many total we have, and then try to equally apportion those people over the 15 minutes as equally as possible. Make sure, we've had this problem in the past, make sure you get my attention. I've got a lot going on, so if you think I didn't see you and you want to speak, please make sure before I move on that you make yourself known. If you are in the room or online, when you come up to speak, always start by giving me your name and address for the record. We are recording this hearing, and we want to make sure that we have who is speaking to which agenda item correct. Then when you're done, if you're in the room, if you could see Lauren, she's at the end of the dais, she's with the clerk's office. She has a log on the top of the desk, and if you could please sign in with your name, address, and the case number to which you spoke. As I mentioned, all testimony, I'm sorry, let me skip ahead. The county attorney now will provide you, Mr. Clark, will provide you with the legal requirements which govern your participation at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. Good evening. My name is Cameron Clark. I'm an Assistant County Attorney. Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is the time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present evidence and testimony. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will take a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at its September 10th land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the hearing master for each application. The hearing master will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight on August 12th. The Board of County Commissioners has established a policy that directs which rezoning and major modification applications are to be placed on the consent agenda of the board's land use meeting. Applications that propose to add density outside the urban service area and applications that are on roadways with a failing level of service are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. Applications that do not have consistent recommendations of approval or denial are also not qualified to be placed on the consent agenda. And finally, applications that have had evidence or testimony provided into the record by non-applicant parties of record, either prior to or at tonight's public hearing, are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. The board will allow testimony by any party of record at its public meeting to consider the hearing master's recommendation for any item on the regular agenda. Testimony by a party of record shall be limited to the record of the proceedings before the hearing master unless additional evidence has been found admissible in accordance with Section 10.03.04D of the Land Development Code. A party of record is someone who fits into at least one of the following four categories. First, someone who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, someone who has been certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, someone who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days before tonight's hearing. Or fourth, someone who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. The content of oral argument before the board shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It's the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who meet these requirements are allowed to speak before the board and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at its public meeting is entered in tonight's record. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. As I mentioned, all testimony must be under oath. So if you plan to speak tonight, if you could please stand, raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you so much. Please have a seat. All right, then with that, Ms. Heinrich, we're ready to call the first case.
Our first application is item C2, standard rezoning 24-0807. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from ASC 1 to RMC 9. Carol Ann Peddle with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
All right, Mr. Pressman. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you very much. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is 240807. It is 4.52 acres. Zoning is ASC 1. Future land use category is R9. The issue before you is ASC 1 to RMC 9. Development Services and Planning Commission support. Located in the southeast part of the county, north of Causeway on 78th Street, a little closer view on 78th Street. Zoning in the area, RSC 9. RSC 9, as you can see, is somewhat the predominant, and then you get into more intensive categories of CN and CG, which are, of course, pink or orange on the map. And future land use categories primarily are all R9 in the vicinity and R20, which you can see in the map somewhat in the vicinity. Outside the coastal high hazard area, some policies that are germane to it include locating housing with transportation infrastructure. The site is located directly on one main route of Hart, which runs out to Brandon and downtown. encourage a variety of housing types, which this would. It would provide a different type of housing stock in the immediate area to diversify housing stock. Other policies are to encourage new infill and redevelopment compatible with existing community patterns, encourage availability of affordable, attainable, private-owned housing stock that is safe, decent, compatible, and accommodate all modes of transportation, which we indicated it is located on a main bus route. Under the Greater Palm River Community Plan, it is located as shown here in 78th, which is a mixed-use business, office, and residential pedestrian-oriented development area. So that we appreciate your attention and happy to answer any questions you might have.
No questions at this time, but thank you.
Thank you.
Development Services, don't forget to sign in. Don't forget to sign in. Good evening.
Good evening. Carol Ann Peddle, Development Services, Standard Rezoning 24-0807. Again, the applicant's requesting to rezone the property from ASC 1 to RMC 9. The property has a future land use. Is it off? Oh, okay, sorry. The property has a future land use designation of our residential 9 as well as all immediate surrounding properties. The subject parcel is located along the eastern side of South 78th Street, north of Causeway Boulevard, an area with mixture of zoning districts. The immediate adjacent properties to the north, east, and south are zoned ASC 1 and RSC 9, developed with residential uses, while the property to the west is zoned RSC 9 MH, developed with a church. The surrounding area has a majority residential uses, while the property to the south towards Causeway Boulevard are zoned CG and CN for commercial uses at various intensities. 2 planned developments approved for multifamily are located in the general vicinity of the subject parcel, located at the northwest corner of Causeway Boulevard and 86th Street, and southeast to the south side of Causeway Boulevard. Additionally, as a standard rezoning district, the property will be required to meet height, setbacks, and buffer and screening requirements which address compatibility with surrounding uses. Based on the previous considerations, staff finds the proposed RMC 9 zoning district compatible with existing zoning districts and development in the area. Therefore, staff finds the request approvable.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject property is designated as residential 9 in the future land use map. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. The site's in the urban service area where, according to Objective 1 of the future land use element, 80% of the county's growth is to be directed there. Policy 1.4 requires all new developments to be compatible with the surrounding area. The site is currently developed with single-family uses, and single-family residential surround the site. Therefore, it does meet the intent of that policy language. The proposed rezoning also meets the intent of Policy 8.1, as the RMC 9 zoning district would allow for density that is intended in the residential 9 future land use designation. The site's within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. One of the strategies under Goal 5B is to support a mix of residential types developed with new urbanism characteristics at appropriate locations. The request to rezone the site from ASC 1 to RMC 9 would meet the intent of this strategy, as allowing multifamily would bring in different housing options and would complement the surrounding area. And based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Pressman, anything else? All right. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0807 and go to the next case.
Our next application is item C3, standard rezoning 24-0836. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from BPO restricted to CG restricted. Michelle Montalbano with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Is the applicant here? Good evening again.
Good evening, hearing officer. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is RZ Standard 24-0836. We're located in the general Riverview area, located on Boyette Road. and the site is 1.58 acres, and shown here by the property appraiser on Boyette Road. Issues before you are rezoning from BPO to CGR. It's only for the one specific parcel. We're seeking to add childcare use, increasing the FAR from 0.2 to 0.25, and also remove the residential appearance requirements. The prior restrictions were placed on the site quite some time ago, 18 years ago. So overall, what's before you is the uses allowed would be dance studio, health practitioner, professional services, personal services, dentist, oral surgeon, child care. That's the bottom line of what's before you under the rezoning, restricted uses. The entire area is R4 future land use category, which allows for suburban neighborhood, commercial, office, and mixed uses. This is the current zoning, BPO on both sides with a CN at the intersection of Carr Road with an OR. Per the applicant, as he's communicated, is the site on the east is an office use, is not residentially used, and the BPO on the west side is partially residentially used as a rental from what we understand. Now what's important and a critical factor and really the biggest change in the area is directly across the street, which is the church, which has quite a few extensive uses. And it is quite a large campus and quite a large impact. So that was approved under RZ000622. You can see there's quite a wide array of uses approved. Looking at their site plan, again, directly across the street is a sports field, 58,000 square foot school, 16,000 square foot field house, 31,000 square foot Paris Life Center, 7,100 square foot youth building, office, church, 300 seats, and a 105 bed ALF. So it is quite extensive and quite impactful. And as that came through the process, very importantly, there were no residential appearance requirements as they were required across the street. And that condition is specific that they just be architecturally finished on all sides, which again is different, much different than what's occurring on the site before you. As this came through 000622, both land use staffs approved it. The zoning administrator found it approvable, and the planning commission found it consistent. As far as we can see, the uses proposed here are basically the same intensity across the street. As you can see, they have quite a large sports field, 600 student school, and what's proposed here is small in scale, dance studio, health practitioner. They're not the same, but in terms of what was approved and supported by the entire county, basically roughly the same. The other major change is the arterial roadway, which is Boyette. This is Boyette prior to 2012. And today, the arterial road is a 4-lane divided highway. This is Boyette Road as it currently exists. Carr is up over there to your right. And it's a very busy arterial road at 27,500 vehicles per day in 2020. Now, we don't meet locational criteria, but we placed a waiver based upon the evolving advancements, the changes, the expansion, the allowed uses, the intensity that has occurred in almost 2 decades. Planning Commission, the report notes that basically that's how we justify these changes. They refer to it strictly as the business properties and church across the street, which I've shown you is actually much, much more, many, many times more than just a church. Development Services notes the surrounding uses are single family, institutional, agricultural, office, and commercial are scattered along Boyette Road. We think that's a definition or a view that's within the ballpark. Planning Commission has a different, they refer to the given surrounding residential and lower intensity office development pattern. When you look at the Planning Commission report, they look at what's to the south as just educational, although we've shown you that it is many times the intensity, many times the usage than just educational. They note to the east, single-family residential agriculture, although that's changing, and to the west, single-family residential, which is also changing as well. The community plan under the residential district vision does note that managed growth does permit higher densities, which we do believe supports the increase of FAR from 0.20 to 0.25. The Planning Commission also, at one point, notes that Res 4 allows for the consideration of many uses, residential, suburban scale, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, which we meet. Yet at the same time, they say the intent of the residential 4 category is to designate only low-density residential development. So with respect to the Planning Commission, we look at how they are presenting that Res 4 category, and clearly it is the first that does allow suburban scale neighborhood commercial. We are a little bit at odds with transportation. In our posture, this is a standard application. No transportation is required for submittal. The issues they raise are to be addressed at permitting and site planning. They are indicating that they, as I understand it, feel that a right turn lane is required. We did look at that quickly as we got those comments, and our transportation consultant, who I did ask her to look at that, said no, that would not be required. Driveway spacing, Euclidean, all those projects or driveway spacing go through a variance. It's very common, but those are issues, as far as we're concerned, that are to be handled and looked at and considered after a zoning entitlement under standard application. So with that, we feel that when you look at the whole site and look at the uses that were approved and supported by the county, this is a request that is compatible and cohesive. I did check the record before the hearing this morning. There were no emails or letters of opposition. The site's been noticed, and of course, the big yellow sign has been out for quite some time. So with that, we appreciate your consideration.
I do have several questions. Let me start with, and some of these questions I'll ask of staff too, but I'll go ahead and, while you're here, ask you yourself. First, regarding the proposed restriction, the addition, the application infers that it's only adding childcare, as that's the only use that's added that's not currently permitted under the BPO. Is that correct? Because the reason I ask is that it specifically calls out, in addition, I pulled the conditions for the BPO from 2006. And this application that's at the subject for tonight lists, in addition, dentist and oral surgeon. But my first question is, wouldn't that fit under the existing condition that allows health practitioner's office? Why was that separately called out?
Well, I always list everything in extra or in any regard, so it's on record. Health practitioner, from my understanding, is a little bit gray. So I wanted to be absolutely sure that the specific uses of dentist, oral surgeon, or an oral surgeon are clearly presented and part of the record.
Okay, so we'll clarify that with staff. But in your mind, the big change is to ask for a child care center. Is that correct? As an additional use?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then the request to increase the FAR from 0.2 to 0.25 gives you an additional 3,400 square feet, correct? And then the last request is to remove the requirement to have the structure appear residential in nature. And did you not just say that the structure to the west is residential but being used commercially, or was that the structure to the east? One of them was residential in appearance.
Well, I was referring to use. You just said appearance. But I think you're asking use, correct?
I'm asking both.
In my estimation, they do look residential in appearance. The applicant has indicated to me, and he is here tonight, that there is no more residential use in the east. On the west, there is still a rented or partial rented residential use.
All right. And so then you have structures to both the east and the west that continue to appear residential but may be used otherwise.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And your rationale for eliminating that requirement is a large church across the street?
Well, it's a number of factors. It is how the whole area has changed, modified, and moved forward in almost 2 decades, which includes the approvals across the street, includes the expansion of the arterial, significant expansion of the arterial, and what appear to be a lessening or reduction of residential use abutting.
Okay, and then finally, this is my last question for you. Child care center is a conditional use in BPO, and so why not, for 3,400 square feet, why not avoid this and just ask for a conditional use to add it to the existing zoning?
Well, that's, I'm sorry, Dimitri. That,
Good evening.
Oh.
You can give us your name and address.
Dmitry Artsabushev, 1525 West Hillsborough Avenue, Tampa. We don't need 25, but 22.22 is what we were requiring to fit the child care center in, as well as the oral surgeon and a dentist. So we're
Okay.
just a little shy, and it just, to fit their standard footprint, that's what we were trying to
Right,
accomplish.
but you understand you have recommendations for denial from both planning staffs?
I do.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Pressman, unless you had anything you wanted to add.
no, thank you.
All right, if you could both please sign in. Thank you. Development Services. Mr. Pressman, does that complete your presentation? Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Montalbano, Development Services. This applicant is requesting to rezone property from BPO with restrictions to CG with restrictions. The current BPO-R zoning district restricts the potential uses and has residential appearance architectural standards. With the current CGR request, the applicant is adding childcare centers to the list of permitted uses, increasing the maximum FAR permitted, and removing the architectural theme requirements. The property is located in the Riverview area along Boyette Road. The surrounding uses are residential, agricultural, institutional, or neighborhood commercial uses. The neighboring properties to the east and west are zoned BPO-R, but are currently still occupied by single-family homes. To the north is an AS1 zoned property occupied by a mobile home dwelling. Across the Boyette Road is a PD with a church and school. In the nearby vicinity, there are no developments zoned CG or exceeding a .2 FAR. The applicant elected to rezone to the CGR district instead of BPO or CN, which permits all the proposed uses to increase the allowed FAR to .25. The applicant provides the reason for the request is due to the character of the area changing. While staff can acknowledge that Boyette Road has been expanded since 2006, the site continues to be an area of BPO and CN intensity. Therefore, the CGR request would introduce a zoning district and FAR request that is not compatible with the surrounding area. Also, the applicant chose to fully remove the architectural theme requirements with this request. The abutting properties to the east and west zone BPR still have these standards. Staff finds the residential appearance restrictions remain relevant to maintain the residential character of the area and in keeping with residential adjacent properties. Transportation review staff also have objections to the rezoning request due to the proposed intensification of the site on a substandard access. Due to these considerations, staff finds the rezoning request not supportable. Thank you.
Let me ask you, Ms. Montalbano or Ms. Heinrich, either one. Back to almost my same questions to Mr. Pressman. Am I correct that dentist and oral surgeon would both fit under the existing health practitioner office?
Correct.
So that clarification is unnecessary. They could do that today.
Correct.
All right, so then they are adding a childcare. That is the new use. All right,
Correct.
thank you. And am I correct also that childcare is a conditional use in BPO, that they could request that?
It is not permitted in that standard, the BPO restricted currently.
Right.
So to add that use, they would still have to rezone it.
They would have to rezone to add the use. You couldn't get it through the conditional use process?
It wouldn't be through the conditional use process because this is a restricted BPO. It doesn't allow all BPO uses. If the increased FAR was not an issue, they could just do a new BPOR and add that in.
I see. But it would still require rezoning, although not as
Correct.
intensive as this. Okay. Ms. Montalbano, I think that is it. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. All right, we will go to the Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site's designated as residential 4 in the future land use map. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposed rezoning does not meet the intent of future land use element Objective 16 and its accompanying policies relating to neighborhood protection. Eliminating the previously approved restriction that addresses architectural requirements would eliminate important mitigative measures that were put in place for the subject site to address compatibility concerns. Given the surrounding residential development pattern, there are still significant compatibility concerns with a non-residential use. The architectural theme requirement was put in place to address these compatibility concerns, and removing this requirement would not be in line with the policy direction under Policy 1.4 and 12-1.4. The proposed rezoning from BPOR to CGR appears to be too intense of a zoning district, given that the BPO zoning already accommodates many of these intended uses. Additionally, the site does not meet commercial locational criteria per future land use element policy 22.2, as the nearest qualifying intersection is located at Boyette Road and Bell Shoals Road, which is approximately 4,000 feet away. There do not appear to be any unique circumstances that would warrant the support of a waiver to this criteria. In addition, the proposed rezoning to CGR is not consistent with the existing pattern and character of the area, with single-family residences to the north, west, and east of the subject site. It's also not located at a major intersection where the more intense uses are expected per policy 22.5. Staff recommends that the board deny the waiver to the locational criteria. And according to related community plans, design standards should incorporate identifiable themes and architectural elements inspired by Riverview's historic landmarks and heritage. It aims to steer clear of the generic strip commercial developments, advocating instead for unique roadway designs and landscapes that enhance the community's character. These standards also encourage the use of techniques such as landscaping, berms, and median enhancements to create buffers around parking areas, water retention areas, and sidewalks. The rezoning to CGR with the removed restrictions does not meet the vision of the Riverview Community Plan. And based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition to this request? No one. Ms. Heinrich, anything further?
No, ma'am, unless you have any questions.
No, you answered my question. Thank you. Mr. Pressman, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Okay, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0836 and go to the next case.
Our next application is item D1, Major Mod 24-0034. The applicant is requesting a major modification to PD 92-0366. Tim Lampkin with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation, and I believe you do have a revised staff report which did make a change to condition 9.
Okay, thank you so much. I do have that. Is the applicant here? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brian Corrali. It's spelled K-I-R-A-L-Y. I have a loud voice, so I don't need to lean into the mic here. 400 North Tampa Street, Suite 1320, Serenity Capital Management. I'm here on this case, 240034. We've been working on this for months, and we've come a long way. So that is that's a good sign here. I'll start with just a general description of the overall area, and I do have it zoomed quite a bit out because there's so many existing residential developments. I mean, it's just a lot of rooftops, and this is a non-residential project, so rooftops are important. It's a 9-acre site located approximately a quarter mile west of Westlake and approximately 0.6 of a mile east of 301. Again, there's very large residential developments, which is excellent for non-residential use. The existing future land use is OC20. The existing zoning is a PD. The existing use is a mobile home and RV park. As far as what we're proposing 2 options. The first option is simply to maintain the RV and mobile home park as an interim use. Mainly that was required because otherwise it would be a non-conforming use once the project gets approved. So the main project proposes 10,000 square feet of office, 21,000 square feet of retail, and 105,000 square feet of mini warehouse. We've worked on this quite a bit. The Waimama downtown plan is very exhaustive. There's many things in there, so we have really made a lot of changes to the plan. They include that we are not just dedicating right-of-way, but we're building on north-south and east-west grid roads that are called for in the Waimama plan. We're compliant with the site planning as far as the parking locations, stormwater pond locations, building design features, pedestrian connectivity, building orientation, the building frontage along 674, retail office maximum lot size and width. We are providing 26 feet of right-of-way for future widening of State Road 674, and we have preliminary approval by DOT for the driveway location. Because the Waimama plan is so exhaustive, we worked it down to where we just have a handful of waivers that are required. They mainly apply to the mini warehouse. So for example, the code has a maximum lot size and maximum lot width, and because the mini warehouse won't fit on what those standards are, we're asking for that to be waived. We're asking for an increased building setback also for the mini warehouse. That is mainly due to site planning, that we need a drive that circulates around the building with loading, and then you would need buffers and a sidewalk, and so that's why we needed to ask for the increased building setback. And then there's also increased door separation. That's in case the mini warehouse needs a door further apart than 75 feet. We're requesting one variation, and that is just for the scenic corridor plantings. It's not like there won't be any plantings, but all the buildings on 674 are oriented towards 674. They have sidewalk connections to the sidewalks. There's building entrances. There's 75% window transparency. There's a lot going on that the scenic corridor plantings, as they're written, were not something that we could fit. I mean, if we tried to fit them, they literally would block the buildings. And staff has okayed that. Again, we've been through this very thorough review, different site plan versions. I've shown actual concept plans to show staff what we're trying to accomplish. And we ended up with, the Planning Commission has found it consistent, Development Services finds it approvable, Transportation finds it approvable. So with that, we're respectfully request that you provide a recommendation for approval, and I'm here for any questions.
I do have some questions. I understand the waiver request, that it's not the subject. My questions primarily focus on the variation, the request to the scenic corridor. PD variation, rather. So first, I didn't see a survey in the file, and I couldn't tell from your site plan what your frontage is on 674. So if you could help me, I know what the requirement is, but I don't know how many trees would be required.
The plantings are one tree per 40 feet.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that's
No,
a street tree, and then the shade tree is one tree per 50 feet. So
Right.
it's not per linear foot. You have to provide those many trees for that length. So it's not like a street tree where you have to do, say, 40 feet on center is the standard. It's not on center. They're just saying you have to provide one tree for every such feet of frontage.
So how many feet of frontage do you have? That's what I couldn't find.
I would have to get that for you. I can't.
You could get back to me.
Okay. And how would I do that, just so I know? Do you need it tonight, or?
I do. Everything
Okay.
I have has to come in tonight at the hearing. You need a survey, you need a site plan, or something that tells me how many feet of frontage you have on the state road.
Yeah, I'm gonna, okay, it's somewhere around 400, 500 feet, but I
Okay.
have to give
Well,
you a specific number.
You could get back to me. You'll come again at the end of the hearing.
Okay.
So you think it's 400
I
approximate feet?
would guess 450 feet.
450
Yes.
feet, okay. And we'll also get with staff. What I need to know is how many trees are we talking about? So that's where I'm trying to get to. Okay,
Of course, I have it at the computer, which is not with me.
all right, well,
It was, again, I'd be guessing. I don't like to guess when I'm under testimony. I would say it was over 50 trees. It was quite a bit, because
And-
it's two of them.
okay. And so what is your plan to provide landscaping, any kind of screening along the frontage of the road?
Well, we would do clustered plantings around the entrances. The idea would be not to block, I mean, the whole idea of the Waimama downtown overlay is to have visible building entrances that are easy to see. And the window transparency is meant to be able to see the merchandise inside the building. So we would want to cluster them to be able to still see the buildings or any kind of front signage. But we haven't come up with landscape plans at this time. But it wouldn't be devoid of landscaping, we just can't commit to the scenic tree planting ratios.
All right. That was my only question. Thank you so much.
Okay.
If you could please sign in with the clerk's office. Development Services. Good evening.
Good evening, Tim Lampkin, Development Services. And we can help the applicant out. The right-of-way is approximately 50 feet, so we can use that as a scale to figure out how much frontage there is on 674. I can work with the
Thank
applicant,
you.
or if the
I
applicant
appreciate
has
it.
the map.
I'm trying to get to how many trees are we talking that will not be planted if this requirement were waived?
And you received a revised staff report?
I did.
And the first change was on the cover page. It was a conversation. It should have been conversion. It was just a auto-correct. And in condition 9, regarding the lot size, it should also apply to the stormwater pond. So, and stormwater pond was included in condition 9.
Wait a minute, conversion. I'm still on conversion. And
Oh,
then,
sorry.
I'm sorry. And then in the condition 9, I saw that. Okay.
Yes. And that's it for the revisions.
Okay. Thank you.
So this proposed modification, I'm going to go through it quickly since the applicant did a thorough job with it, because otherwise I have pages of, because there are a number of waivers. They're proposing a modification to amend the conditions of approval for PD 92-0366. This is the first amendment in the last 32 years since its adoption in 1992. The property is approximately 9.08 acres, and it's located north of State Road 674, approximately 1,400 feet of West Lake Drive. It is in the Waimama Downtown Overlay, Sub-Area B, Downtown Center District. And as such, the development is proposed to comply with section 3.2300 Waimama Downtown Overlay District, with the exception of the requested waivers. The applicant proposes to keep option 1 that's there today. If they move forward with option 2, that is to allow 21,000 square feet of retail buildings, 10,000 feet of office buildings, then these are going to be fronting State Road 674 in compliance with the Waimama regulations, with a maximum of 105,000 square foot mini warehouse located in the northeast quadrant, accessed off of the applicant's new north-south grid road, and a stormwater pond located in the northwest quadrant of the subject site. The applicant will comply with design elements within the Waimama Community Downtown Overlay per LD Section 32307E. These include such elements as the building facade being finished to grade, and additional buildings required to incorporate different architectural elements that are dictated by the Waimama Code. And pursuant to the Waimama regulations, the mini warehouse is located off of both the east-west and the north-south new roads to be constructed pursuant to LDC. This is 3.2308 street network design. And the transportation report also goes in more depth about the roadway network. The fact that the applicant is constructing the north, south, east, west roadway network, it minimizes the number of waivers that's requested. Initially, the applicant came in with over a dozen waivers, and they've got it down to 4 because of the different revisions they're proposing. The maximum height is 50 feet and 4 stories. The applicant proposes to limit the height of the mini warehouse to 45 feet or 3 stories. Staff notes that next door is a mini warehouse that allows an FAR of 0.62, where the overall subject site, the FAR of what is proposed would be 0.35, which is less intense and would be more compatible with the residential located to the north of that new east-west grid road. The applicant's requesting 4 waivers. Just really quickly, waiver 1 is regarding section 323.6, table 5.2. It's to allow a larger lot size for the mini warehouse, and it also would be for the stormwater pond. Waiver 2 would be to section 3.23.06. It's also to table 5.2, and this is regarding the minimum lot width and the maximum lot width, which is dictated by the code, and the applicant proposes a larger lot width and size for the mini warehouse and stormwater pond. Waiver 3, the applicant requests to allow greater setbacks for the mini warehouse from both of the new east-west and north-south grid road. Waiver 4 is regarding the spacing of the doorways to allow flexibility should they need additional doorways. And really quickly, pursuant to, then there's the variation. I can go into detail. If you had any additional questions, I can help the applicant with that. And then the applicant is not proposing any additional variations from the land development code, parking and loading, landscaping, irrigation, buffering, fences and walls. Planning Commission found that the major modification consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County, and staff finds it consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough, finds it approvable.
Just quickly, Mr. Lampkin.
Yes.
The requirement for buffering and screening along the State Road 674 frontage, not including the scenic corridor, what are they required to do by the Land Development Code?
So by the Land Development Code, it would fall under the Waimama Code and, actually it's on the cover page. So what they would be required to do would be, it's not there.
And if you want to get back to me, we can keep going, and you can come back with that answer in addition to the how many trees are required by the scenic corridor. I'm good with that.
I will do that because I have the Waimama Code right here and I'll look it up for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Ms.
I appreciate
Finch?
it. Yes.
Just to save
Perfect.
Tim some trouble, I measure it out on our GIS.
Thank you.
And the parcel looks to be about 650 feet in width,
Okay.
just so Tim didn't have to
So
work
how
on
many
that.
trees does that translate to, just so we're all clear?
Let me see, if it was every 40 feet?
Every 40 feet for one street tree and every 50 feet for a canopy tree. All right, and if you don't mind, let's keep moving. We'll come back.
Sure,
We'll
yeah,
come back,
I'll
I'll
work
come
on-
back to you and we'll get the whole
Certainly.
answer. All right, Planning Commission, please.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site is designated as Office Commercial 20 on the future land use map. It's within the urban service area and the limits of the Waimama Community Plan and South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposed major modification meets the intent of Objective 1 of the future land use element by providing growth in the urban service area. The modification also meets the intent of Policy 1.4, being found compatible with the surrounding area which has commercial uses along State Road 674. The application is also consistent with Objective 16 and associated policies relating to neighborhood development and neighborhood protection, as well as Objective 12 in the community design component relating to compatibility. The applicant is proposing an internal circulation and street stub-outs to connect adjacent neighborhoods together, while also being sensitive to environmentally sensitive land on site. This also meets the intent of Policy 16.7 and Waimama Community Plan Goal Number 5. The subject site meets the intent of other policies under Objective 16 regarding the protection of adjacent land uses through various buffering and mitigation measures. The surrounding land use pattern is commercial in character along State Road 674, and the modification will not significantly alter that, nor will it encroach into the single-family residential developments located further to the north. The sites in the Waimama Village Community Plan, specifically in the Downtown Center B District, which includes a mix of residential and retail and office uses. The modification will meet the intent of the business and economic development goal of the plan by providing a commercial use in the commercial core along State Road 674. The site's also in the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. This plan encourages implementing preferred development patterns as identified in the community plan. Therefore, the proposed development is compatible and meets the intent of these community plans. And based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? All right, seeing no one. I know we have one person signed up online in opposition. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak in opposition to this request? All right, then we'll go. Ms. Roush, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right,
Hello.
Hello, can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, Polly Roush, and I'm at 5116 State Road 674 in Wamama. I'm at the mobile home park that they are proposing to get rid of. And I wanted to let you know that this is a nice park. There is, and I apologize, I've got a respiratory issue going on. It's a large park that right now does have about 15 to 20 residents that are planning or wanting to stay. This is a retirement village, and they bought property here or bought their home here and expected to stay here. So I'm very opposed to the fact that it would all be torn down and taken away. There is so much beautiful 100-year-old trees here and foliage and the wildlife, and the people that are here some of them do not care to be displaced. Yes, some of them have already, we were verbally warned about selling of the property about a year ago. Some people have already moved. However, there are people here that want to stay. And under Chapter 723, I believe it's Section 64, there is a law or a statute that states that other provisions or other residential mobile home must be provided within a 5-mile radius of this park in order to place these other people that, want to stay here or had made this their home. I'm very opposed to all of it just because Wamama area is very nice and these people should not need to relocate. Under that statute, they do say that there needs to be adequate, suitable living within a 5-mile, and there is not. I have looked around. There are no other mobile home parks, that are 55 and older and so forth. So I wanted to speak tonight at tonight's meeting and oppose this major modification because it is really, I believe, will just make this whole area more concrete. I apologize. This is a 9-acre lot that has a lot of Mother Nature and a lot of people that have been here. Some people have been here 20 and 30 years. And they had no intention of leaving the park. And with that being said, I don't feel that this should go through. I do feel that it's only a matter of time once, if this park gets sold and the storage place goes in, or whatever they're going to put here, concrete, and then you're going to plant new trees when there's already 100-year-old trees that are here, which I understand you cannot relocate. Nonetheless, I feel like this whole area is just becoming more and more concrete. It's less residential. And then there are homes on 674 that are close to the road. A lot of those homes, if this goes through and they're doing modifications throughout 674 going east, it's only a matter of time before those homes will end up getting torn down as well. And it will be less and less residential and more commercial. And I don't feel like it's right. So that is, I don't know what else I can say as far as that goes, but
Right.
that's
Well-
basically, I would voice my opinion on it.
I appreciate your testimony and your participation in the process. I really do. Thank you so much. All right, before I move on, is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing no one. All right, we'll go back to Development Services. Ms. Heinrich, before we go to my answer about the scenic corridor, can we just assure for the process that this application has been reviewed in light of Florida statutes and the code requirements regarding the relocation of those mobile homes?
It has. It's my understanding that none of these homes are owned. They're leased spaces and leased homes, and the Florida statute that was referred to is when you own the mobile home.
Understood. All
And
right.
you can probably ask the applicant to confirm that.
I will, on rebuttal, yes, I will. All right, so then let's go back to my question about how many trees are required for the scenic corridor along the 674 frontage?
My apologies. I believe the applicant is correct, that it's every 40 feet. I'd have to look that up. What I just looked up was regarding the setback of the
I did ask
retail.
you what the land development code requires in addition to the scenic corridor, so if you'd like to
Yes.
answer that, that would be great.
And so the Land Development Code, Section 3.23.7 F3 states, F2, it allows 0 to 20 feet. Normally, it's 0 to 10, but there's a provision for the mixed-use building lots and retail office building lots. A portion of the building frontage may be set back 20 feet from the maximum front yard depth. Yes.
All right, so maybe we're not communicating. So
Okay.
I was trying to understand what the landscaping requirements, what the screening requirements are.
There are none.
Okay, so there's nothing except for the scenic corridor.
That is correct.
All right, then that leads me back to my question about how many trees.
And that's the part I have.
Thank you, go ahead.
For the 650 feet frontage, for the street trees, every 40 feet, that would be 17 street trees. And for the canopy trees, every 50 feet, that would be 13, so 30 trees total.
Okay, for the canopy, thank you, that's exactly what I was looking for. I appreciate it. All right, thank you, Mr. Lampkin. All right, we will go back to the applicant, who has 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
Hi there, thank you. Brian Corrali with Serenity Capital Management. As far as the mobile home issue, the seller of the land is actually an estate. So the owner had passed away. It was the dad, it was Don, he ran the mobile home that was, I'm going, by the limited information I have, it was his baby. The daughter that inherited it does not want to run the mobile home park.
And so you're proceeding in accordance with the county and state rules?
We filed a mobile home report. I did that with the initial application and submittal. There have been no comments on the mobile home report. I did the report myself. The regulation, as I understand, is you only have to move them if there are lots, available lots within 5 miles that they can be moved to. Okay, not that they're lots that they can be moved to. There are no available. There is one mobile home one mobile home park within 5 miles. It's to the west, but their lots are only available if you buy a unit from them. So you can't have a unit and just say, hey, can I get the lot? It doesn't work that way. Kind of like buying a boat and you have to have the slip go along with it. It's that kind of thing. So my understanding is, unfortunately, we're not obligated to move anyone because there's nowhere for anyone to move to within the 5 miles.
All right, understood. All right, if you want to talk about the landscaping issue or anything else you'd like before we
No,
close.
I concur. It was roughly 30 trees. But again, you have building entrances that could be 20, 25 feet apart. You have a side, well, can I go back here? It's all, can I go back to the PowerPoint here? Second. And this is all really schematic. I don't know if I can zoom in. I should. Well, the point being is there is a sidewalk that runs along the frontage of 674. That is parallel 674.
That's in the right-of-way.
No, that would be in front of the buildings.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a sidewalk also in the right-of-way. But if you have entrances that are facing 674, you need some sidewalk to connect them. Okay, so there will be a east-west connecting sidewalk with connections to the buildings and then connections to the State Road 674. So, and plus depending on if they're 20, 25-foot wide suites, you could have doors fairly close. So that's why we were saying we felt the standard was too high to be able to provide the entrances and the sidewalks and the visibility that we felt the Waimama Code calls for.
Does the door spacing you relate to apply to one of the waivers you're requesting, correct?
Yeah, that is in case we need a door wider than, further apart than 75.
Okay,
But the suites we're planning on are 20 to 25 feet, so you could have a sidewalk. Depends. I mean, someone might lease 2 units, it might be 1 unit. We have not designed the buildings, but again, if you have, if you go by the 20 to 25-foot suite concept, then you're going to have entrances, you're going to have a sidewalk that leads in and connects to the connecting sidewalk, which leads to 674. So there's a lot going on in the front of the buildings, and we have a 0 to 20-foot setback. So there are some constraints.
understood. All right, anything else you want to add before we close?
No, I think that's it.
All right, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time and testimony, I appreciate it. With that, we'll close major modification 24-0034 and go to the next case.
Our next application is item D2, PD rezoning 24-0124. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from ASC1 to PD. Chris Granlenard with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation. And you should have received a revised staff report which specifies for the townhomes a lower building height and proposes enhanced buffering and screening.
Is that a change in the conditions?
On the first page, you'll see it's a change in the height, and given the time that it was provided to us, the conditions state as shown on the site plan is how the buffering and screening should be provided. So as a requirement for certification, they're going to need to match what it is that they're proposing.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. I have information for the record that I need to submit right now.
Okay, you can submit it to the clerk right there, and she will get it to me as a part of the record. Give us your name and address. Who'd ever like to start?
202 Windward Passage.
Sir, you need to speak into the
Okay.
microphone. Thank you.
Ali Halawi, 202 Windward Passage, Clearwater Beach, 33767.
Go ahead.
I'll be taking the lead here. Tim Healy, Frontier Engineering, 803 North Howard Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33606. I want to, you got that up there on there. Okay, show a little bit of the mooses there. Thank you for your time. Appreciate the assistance that we've had through the process. We're proposing 71 units of residential development, 14 units of duplex with 57 units of townhome. And I wanted to just put up on the screen here, it's kind of, there's a there's some conjunction with the PD to the south, that we have connections to the south that we are required to do. And you'll see here with Ali here, we have down to the south, you can see the subdivision PD that was south of us that we are connecting to with the off-site connection. So it is the owner's vision to create a development which provides quality residential housing at an affordable price to a community that is experiencing population growth and a demand for these residential units. Currently, the area is undergoing housing construction. 2 lots to the south and parcel immediately to the south will be rezoned, which it has been. We were the engineering development agents for that development to the south. And that plan was for 76 residential unit subdivision. So this development, I think, is a good mix to the community. It adheres to kind of to the east is woodland, the woodland acres, and you can see we have a mix of duplex and a multifamily development, townhomes. So just going through the engineering aspects of this, we have a connection to Sly Avenue, which was required by Transportation Department. We also have a connection to Elm Street, which was required by your Transportation Department. We work with Jillian on the density, and we are a few units short of the credits included on the density, but we have with 71 units, and that was acceptable to staff. Looking at an engineering point of view, for the first point of it, we have a retention pond to the southwest corner of the site. That retention pond is for volume compensation. That is a historical depression, which we need to have a volume compensation pond for that. And then we have for our required volume treatment compensation, we have a retention pond in the middle going north-south through the townhome units. You can see that long north-south units retention pond there. We work diligently with staff on, there is a wetland on site, which was, we came in originally with a larger unit count. We were denied forcefully on that, so we had to back down the development. We had about 85 to 90 units originally. We backed down the units per EPC, and we came up with a kind of a compromise here, which if you see the crosshatch on this aerial, the X crosshatch that's kind of clouded, that is the area that we have that is going to have to be mitigated for wetland compensation. So back to engineering, we do have utilities available for this project. There is sanitary sewer, there is a force main on the south side of Sly Avenue. There is force main is on the north side of Sly Avenue. There is a water line running on the south side of Sly Avenue, so we can connect to that and provide water and sewer for the development. We did have a neighborhood association meeting. We listened to their concerns. Couple of things that that came about from that meeting is we do have, we tried to kind of have a mix of townhome units and duplex units. The duplex units are adjacent to the single-family homes, and those are on the east side. Those lots, because we're required to connect to the PD development to the south, those lots are 109 feet long. That'll give a little bit of more buffer to the residential to the east, the woodlands development to the east. As you can see on the plan there, you can notice they're a little bit longer, 109 feet deep. So we transitioned from duplex to multifamily development and then back to single-family homes. The single-family homes along Elm Street, we have a retention pond next to that residential unit. We have two residential units really impacted along Elm Street. We have a residential pond to the south. We have the wetland to the north. And only the short side of the multifamily units are adjacent to the single-family homes. So it's not like they're looking at one big multifamily unit. They're only looking at the side, and the side is only going to be 35 to 40 foot deep. It's as if they were adjacent to the single-family home. Other than that, as far as engineering goes, the connection was required to slide by the Transportation Department. There was a connection by the Transportation Department per Elm Street. And there's also a connection requirement to the south, to the PD that was approved a couple years ago, which we were involved in. But it's all lined up with that. I have on team here to represent, I have Ali Haloui with the owners, applicant. I have Michael Yates with transportation. I have Rick with the wetlands mitigation. And I know when we went with the neighborhood association meeting, they were concerned, their main concerns was traffic and wetlands and environmental. Michael can attest to some off-site improvements that are required by the county. So I would yield to Ali kind of to talk about the product, and then Michael Yates, and then Rick with the wetlands. If you have any questions on engineering, I will answer that.
I have two questions, and I think that perhaps you can answer. First is the PD variations that you're asking for to reduce the buffer width, one from 20 to 10 feet and the other from 20 to 13 feet. My question is, will you comply with the required screening requirements?
Yes, the owner, in fact, which we just submitted to, for record, the owner is committed to a masonry 6-foot wall on that side. Carla Shelton has reviewed this and said, look, we had 10-foot high type canopy trees. She said, we want 15. Owner said, fine. Owner applicant said, fine. That was submitted just for the record today.
Okay, and then my last question is, I see in the narrative of the staff report, you're asking for what I believe is a waiver regarding the 2-to-1 additional setback for buildings that are 20 feet or higher. Is that correct?
That is correct. The owner is committed only to 27.5 feet. And then it's just for this two-story, and Ali has said, just to cover ourselves, it's probably going to come under, but right now, for the product that they're looking for, they requested 27.5. Carla looked at that and said, okay, you need 15-foot trees instead of 10. Okay. So the applicant complied.
Those were my questions. That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you so much. If you could both sign in with the clerk's office, appreciate it. Okay. Development Services, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have more you wanted to say? I thought you were done. I apologize. Okay, thank you. You can come back for a rebuttal if you'd like. Good evening.
Good evening. Chris Growlenard, Development Services. I'm here to present PD 24-0124. The applicant proposes development of a mixed residential development consisting of 71 total dwelling units, 14 units of attached two-family duplex dwelling units, and 57 units of attached single-family townhome dwelling units. The resulting density will be approximately 6.21 dwelling units per acre. The approximate 11.43 acre vacant parcel is zoned ASC 1. The subject property is located at 7819 East Elm Street, Tampa. The area consists of single-family residential. The variations requested, there are two. The first one is a variation to section 6.06.06 to allow for a 10-foot buffer where a 20-foot buffer is required, located south of the retention pond number 1. The second variation to section 6.06.06 to allow for a 13-foot buffer where a 20-foot buffer is required, is located south of the southernmost drive aisle. The applicant also requested a relief from the 2-to-1 setback requirement for additional setback of 2 feet for every 1 foot of structure, height over 20 feet. To mitigate the effects of the relief, as mentioned previously, the applicant proposed some mitigation, proposed three proposed changes. An enhanced landscaping for the proposed 20-foot buffer width, which is 1 tree every 20 feet. A minimum height of 15 feet for the trees, spread 5 feet. A 6-foot solid fence and screening hedge, 6 feet height, planted 5 feet of center of an appropriate species approved by the Natural Resources staff. Number 2, the developer has agreed to install a 6-foot solid masonry wall along the west property line with a stucco finish, and which will replace the proposed wood fencing and the existing chain link fencing.
And a masonry wall on the east side too.
On the east side too? You didn't add that to the. Also, the third one, the developer has agreed to limit the total height of the 2-story townhome units to 27.5 feet. Staff found the requests approvable. The subject property is designated Community Use 12 on the future land use map. The applicant has requested a 2-unit reduction to the FLU, future land use allowable minimum dwelling units to minimize the impacts of the on-site wetlands. The Planning Commission found the proposed reduction approvable and the use consistent with the comprehensive plan. The surrounding uses are similar to the request, single-family residential. Therefore, the rezoning of the subject parcel from ASC 1 to PD with 71 attached residential dwelling units would be consistent with the existing zoning pattern of the area. Based on the CMU 12 future land use classification, the surrounding zoning and development pattern, and the proposed uses for the PD district, staff finds the request approvable, subject to the proposed conditions. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Just 2 quick things. One is, I just wanted to clarify on that front page under PD variations and waivers, the waiver says there's none, but it is that 2-to-1 setback, is that right?
Yes, that's considered relief. It's not really considered a waiver,
All right,
technically.
so just a part of the
It's a relief,
conditions,
yeah.
understood, all right.
And
the change to the correction the applicant made during your presentation to the wall, does that affect the conditions at all?
I changed it to what he gave me.
Okay, so it reflects.
So,
all right.
I as he provided to me, I changed it to.
All right.
So.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site's in the Community Mixed Use 12 designation on the future land use map. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park community plan. The proposed residential units are compatible with the existing single-family residential character of the area, meeting the intent of future land use element policy 1.4. The proposed 71 units do not meet the expected minimum density for this category. However, the proposed site plan meets the criteria for an exception under policy 1.3, as development would have an adverse impact on the environmental features on the site or adjacent to the property if the density were maximized. The site does contain over 25% wetlands, and the applicant has worked extensively with the Environmental Protection Commission staff to come up with a design that has the least impact to the wetlands on the site. The proposal includes appropriate setbacks and buffers. In addition, the stormwater retention areas proposed within the development serve as a buffer as well. The proposed density and lot sizes are reflective of the surrounding neighborhoods. Therefore, the proposal meets the intent of the neighborhood protection policies outlined under Objective 16 and Objective 12 in the community design component. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 19 and Policy 19.1 relating to the requirement of 2 land uses in a mixed-use land use category. The proposal includes 2 housing types, the duplex units and the remainder, the majority being the townhomes. The subject site is in the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. The plan seeks to create housing opportunities for a diverse population and income level, and the proposed development meets the intent of the housing goals in that plan. Based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the County Development Services Department.
All right, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? All right, no one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Sir, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, but you don't have to take it. You're good? All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0124 and go to the next case.
Our next item is item D3, Major Mod 24-0300. The applicant is requesting a major modification to PD 860154. And Sambal with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation. And a revised staff report was provided to you before this that I believe Transportation will be able to pinpoint what changes those are.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson representing the applicant. I'm here with our entire team, which includes Level Up, Land Design, Hill, Ward, Henderson, of course, Casto, Redstone, LC Communities, LRK 40, and Links and Associates. As indicated, this is a major modification to the site, which is located on Big Bend Road and I-75. It is a major modification. There are existing entitlements for extensive commercial and office entitlements, but we are proposing to transform this site into a very unique destination, which will be one of a kind in Hillsborough County. And to present that vision to you, I'd like to ask Sam Stark from LC Communities to come up and present, and he'll be followed by our planner from Level Up.
Thank you. If you could please sign in. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
If you could give us your name and address to
Yep.
start.
Sam Stark, 5776 Royal Lytham Court, Dublin, Ohio, 43017.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I've been with LC for going on 21 years. The company was founded in 1996. And I want to spend a few minutes telling you why LC is different and what we do to bring a sense of community in place to the projects that we build. So we're not just another typical real estate developer or real estate company or gym or restaurant. We've built a brand that is really foundational to bringing people together through participation-driven communities. So we've built over 25 communities, 15,000 homes, and really the difference that LC brings to the table is really about creating place through our amenities and creating connections. We call that home and hospitality, and we're really inspired by a lot of the hospitality business and single-family homes and communities and neighborhoods. So the foundation on how we create a program is we have a restaurant. It's called The Goat. We bring The Goat to every one of the communities that we build and create. The Goat also has an AM offering, which is called Morning Ritual. It's got coffee, bagels, gaming. We have different gaming aspects. We have over 800 volleyball teams. All of this is open to the public. Again, some of the things that you're going to see here are real communities, real pictures, and what we bring to every one of the communities. Indoor, outdoor dining, same thing. So this is a snapshot of each one of our communities. Morning Ritual, the leasing, wellness, pickleball, volleyball, pool bar, pool, outdoor dining. All of those things are foundational to creating a sense of place and community. This is a snapshot of what a typical one of our amenity commercial offerings would be, which is a 4,000 to 9,000 square foot restaurant. There are 2 volleyball courts, a pool deck, and indoor-outdoor dining. Our leasing office is also connected to the coffee shop, so we really want to have that sense of connectivity. On the bottom right there, you're seeing a snapshot of the site plan that gives you a little bit of a view on how we might envision anchoring the corner as you drive in off of Covington Garden. This is a rendering of that building. This is a project that we are currently building in the Carolinas. We thought it was very relevant here. It's inspired with modern coastal architecture. So anywhere we go, we do try to connect locally with the architecture and being a sense of place. Outdoor patio, again, I mentioned this. This is all part of what we create in each one of these communities. The sand volleyball, these are not stock photos. These are real pictures of our customers, real place. Live music, these are some snapshots from our menu at the Goat. This is a snapshot of the inside of typically what we would build. We build this on a 1-story and 2-story, and this has a mezzanine, so again. Morning Ritual, showing you some of the retail frontage and what you would expect. This is one of our communities that we built in Central Ohio. And then changing gears a little bit, this is a bird's eye view looking from the south to the north and the residential side of what LC brings to our communities. We're primarily a townhouse builder. We believe in T&D style of development. Parking is in the rears. 1- and 2-car garages. Everything's alley loaded, as you can see. Tree lawns that are and sidewalks that are 5 to 6 feet wide, so that you can create engagement on the street with your neighbor. This is kind of a look back the other way over the central lake. You're getting a little snapshot of one of the 2 central gathering places that we've identified in the plan. Again, just giving you a sense, but these are our buildings. We've been building these buildings for the last 20+ years. Again, we took some of the architectural elements off of it, but as we want to figure out what's really important to the area and connect with materials and some of the designs locally. This is going to give you our vision of the Central Lake amenity and promenade, so you're really getting a sense of both of those gathering spaces. And this would be a good example of our streetscape. This is right out of construction documents that we rendered in SketchUp, so you get a real sense of what this would look like. Same thing here. You're getting another good sense of what this would look like. And then this picture is our 3-story townhouses with 1- and 2-car garages. Again, a little bit larger homes. Our customers are, especially with the offering, are not nearly as transient. I think our average square footage is over 1,100 square feet. So we do have folks that like to stay a while, and this would be the building that would be facing like the southern border of the property. And then the last image is really kind of seeing all of those things come together, between the restaurant, the walking paths, the gathering spaces, the central lake, and the townhouses and the streetscape that as you look kind of down down Covington Boulevard and that entrance there.
Thank you so much. You could please sign in with the clerk.
Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Stephen Spizzato, certified planner with Level Up Consulting, 505 East Jackson Street here in Tampa. The sub-regional growth shapers impacting our site include area or nearby DRIs, the interchange of I-75 and Big Bend Road, and a concentration of commercial and heavier employment type uses to the west. Concurrent with this major modification is an amendment to the South Bend DRI that's being reviewed as a PRS. The modification implements a distinct vision for the property and that's substantially provided for or described by Sam. It also is responsive to changing market conditions. It subtracts commercial and office intensity and adds residential density. And the result is a mixed-use community that's appropriately scaled to the site characteristics as well as the location. The PD site plan has development areas, including retail commercial. Those are the pink kind of colors there. The mixed-use central, which is the oranger kind of shaded color, and then multifamily, which is more yellow. A major unifying design theme, as you can see on the plan, is the central lake amenity that is encircled by a walkway and includes 2 gathering spaces. There's 2 access points on Big Bend Road. There's 4 access points on Covington, with the main access point being sort of midpoint on Covington. Given the size and location, the project supports both neighborhood and regional scale commercial development. We've outlined those areas where those features are shown, and I think it's fairly clear that the regional scale commercial is in significant demand in this part of the county. And then consistent with good design practices and given the adjacent residential land uses, the plan provides for transition and intensity from north to south. We kind of mimics what I said previously about the commercial there along the I-75 and Big Bend Road, and then we transition to what Sam described in substantially more detail to the south. The request includes a variance, and a design exception. The variation marginally reduces the parking for the big box type use, and that's primarily justified by the internal capture. The variance reduces the driveway length for the easternmost access on Big Bend Road to facilitate access. The design exception provides for a modified T&D street section, on-street parking, that fits the scale of the possible platted townhomes, and all 3 are approvable. I think the record is clear that we're consistent with the plan and compatible with adjacent development. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cami Corbett again for the record. As you can see, this is a really unique community and something that's not like anything else in South County and really not really like anything in Tampa because of the townhome style of the residential units. It's super unique and we're excited to be part of it. One thing that occurred in this that has not occurred to me yet in probably 15 years of development is we actually have 11 emails in full support of the development that were unsolicited, unrelated, just people who found out about the development and are really excited about having this come to this area, and we're here to answer any questions you have.
I did see the 11 in optics. I did see that. There was one in opposition, but I don't know.
Right.
It seemed to be outnumbered by.
And we
significantly.
could also, if you wanted more detail on that, we actually have quite a bit of transition and buffer in between. That was a person directly to the south that we could provide you some rebuttal information on if you'd like.
I don't think that's necessary, but I appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right. Development Services, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Sam Ball with Hillsborough County Development Services. The applicant is requesting a major modification to PD 860154 that would consolidate tracks 1A, 1A1, 1B, and 15 into a single track that would be tract 1. The modification would also decrease the maximum amount of general regional commercial and office use, but would allow for up to 930 residential dwellings as a new permitted use. The subject property is located within South Bend DRI, which has been reviewed for modification under DRI DO 24-0376, which would enable the proposed entitlements. The subject property covers 137 acres located at the southwest corner of I-75 and Big Bend Road. The surrounding zoning development pattern in the immediate vicinity includes single-family residential to the south and west, education to the north, and I-75 to the east. If this modification is approved, the maximum general regional commercial area would be reduced from 1 million square feet to 750,000 square feet. The maximum amount of office space would be reduced from 490,120 square feet to 15,000 square feet. Up to 930 residential dwellings consisting of multifamily of up to 100 platted townhome lots would be permitted, and the proposed site plan configuration places these the non-residential uses north of the neighboring residential uses to the west of the property. Except as noted in the conditions of approval, the multifamily would be required to comply with RMC 20 development standards. The multifamily buildings would also be subject to architectural standards that would be compatible with traditional neighborhood design principles. These standards were proposed by the applicant and address massing, building styles, architectural enhancements such as front stoops, porches, terraces, bay windows, and balconies. The proposed multifamily use in the southern portion of the property would also be required to have a 65-foot setback from the southern property line for buildings up to 45 feet tall, and a 100-foot setback for multifamily structures with heights taller than 45 feet, up to the 62-foot maximum height. The multifamily use would also be screened and separated from the residential properties to the south by a 30-foot type B buffer that would include a 3-foot high berm, a 6-foot PVC fence, and the requirement that plantings be placed outside of that fence. If the standard setback and buffering increases were applied, the minimum buffer would have been a 20-foot type B. The total setbacks would have been 70 feet for the 45-foot building and 104 feet for the 62-foot tall building. Staff finds that the buffer enhancements justify the 4 to 5 foot setback reduction that would normally be required. The approval would also allow for a waiver to section 611-106C7, which will remove the restriction that limits the number of parking spaces that may be located within the functional front yard to 80% of the minimum spaces required for big box development. If this modification is approved, the county engineer will approve 2 design standards, one for substandard roadway improvements to Covington Garden Drive, and the other to an alternative typical section to allow for on-street parking. The county engineer also approved an administrative variance to reduce the minimum throat depth requirements for projects for the project's easternmost access to Big Bend Road. That would reduce the minimum throat depth to 167 feet. Staff finds that the integration and interconnectivity of the mix of uses is sufficient justification to support the waiver from the LDC requirement. Based on all the considerations, staff recommends approval subject to conditions. Available for any questions you may have.
Just one quick one. That is, when Ms. Heinrich introduced the item, she said that the revised staff report was to attach new transportation agency comments. I see that it's a decrease in the number of trips that are generated as opposed when compared to the approval. Is there, I'll leave it to you as to anything that needs to be pointed out in those transportation comments, or we'll just leave it at that?
Actually, James Ratliff is attending virtually to speak to the changes that, a lot of these changes were tied to transportation. And so he's here to go over those and any of the changes that are in the transportation
All right,
report.
perfect. We'll go to him then. Thank you
great.
so much. I appreciate it. Mr. Ratliff?
Ms. Finch?
Yes.
Unfortunately, he's not able to join us virtually right now.
Okay, well,
But I would just let you know that any changes differing from what was provided to you before are in double strike through, double underline. if
I
you
did
need
see
to.
there in a very highlighted bright color for my
In
attention.
his report,
so,
yes, but in our
yes.
conditions,
Yeah,
it's
perfect.
it's that to show the change between what you originally received and what we have tonight.
Understood. All right, thank you so much. Then we'll go to the Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site is currently designated as Urban Mixed Use 20 and Community Mixed Use 12 on the future land use map. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Apollo Beach Community Plan and South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposal has been found to meet the intent of policy language under Objective 1 and 12 relating to compatibility. The proposed density and intensity meet what is intended for the future land use designations on this site. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element Objective 16 and the accompanying policies that require new development to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 in the community design component require new developments to recognize the existing community and be designed to relate to and be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is mostly single-family and agriculture based, therefore the proposed residential uses will complement the surrounding area. The site is within the limits of the Apollo Beach Community Plan and South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. Goal 4 of the Apollo Beach Community Plan is to improve transportation that requires connectivity within new development. Goal 5 of the same plan is to establish and improve sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and trail connectivity. Goal 2 of the transportation objective in the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan is to support alternative modes of transportation. The proposal also meets goals 1, 3, and 4 of the cultural and historical objective and goal 1 of the economic development objective. The proposal includes a mix of retail and commercial uses, office uses, family, multifamily, and residential uses. The mixed-use project will complement the surrounding community and area, and the proposal meets the intent of these community plans. Based on that, Planning Commission staff recommends that found the major modification consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the county.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? All right, no one. Ms. Heinrich?
Nothing further, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Corbett, you have the last word if you'd like it.
Cami Corbett for the record. As far as the transportation staff report changes, they're technical in nature. They're not really substantive. We haven't really even had an opportunity to review them, but we're not going to ask you to sort through that. So we're fine with proceeding as is.
Well, and that's why I noted that there's a significant reduction in the trips when compared
Correct.
to what was approved, so. All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close major modification, is that right? Major modification 24-0300 and go to the next case.
Our next application is item D4, PD 24-0538. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from AR to Plan Development. Jared Folan with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Good evening, Cami Corbett again. I'm representing the applicant here, Alliant Partners Development. They are a local Tampa-based development group that has a great reputation for doing good development in Hillsborough County and the Tampa Bay area. Subject site is located on Boyette Road in between Bell Shoals and McMullen Road. This may look familiar to you. This was the subject of a rezoning in 2022 that was actually remitted twice. So I think you are very familiar with the site and the location.
I am.
What we are proposing this evening is a change and a reduction to the entitlements that were requested in that prior request. We're asking for 57 single-family lots and a medical office of 10,000 square feet, and then a freestanding emergency room of 12,000 square feet. That's our site plan. And just comparing that to what we requested, that was previously requested, the previous request included 6 units to the acre, 86 units, single-family attached, so townhomes. The minimum lot width was 18 feet. Minimum lot size was 1,500 square feet. And you can see we've decreased the density, changed it to single-family detached, made the minimum lot width 30 feet and minimum lot size 2,400 square feet. And with respect to the commercial, we've simplified it. Under the previous request, there was a density bonus that was involved. There was a mixed-use density bonus which required 2 separate commercial uses. This request does not require 2 separate commercial uses, so we're able to have 2 complementary uses of a medical office and a freestanding emergency room. So instead of having both a retail and an office component, we have the 2 medical office uses which are compatible. And then really the only area of contention that we've had, and we worked really hard and give our team a lot of credit for working really hard to work with the neighbors. We did not approach this in a vacuum. They wanted to be certain that the surrounding community did support this request before they brought it forward, and they met personally with members of the Conservancy, the Waterford Homeowners Association, residents who live across to the south on Boyette, and were able to achieve support from all of those entities who previously did not support the request. And so really the only point of contention that we have this evening is the Planning Commission's finding that we don't meet commercial locational criteria. And with that, I'd like to ask our planner to come up and address that issue specifically for you.
Good evening. Stephen Sposato with Level Up Consulting, and certified planner. I've been a certified planner since 1995 and been practicing mostly in the state of Florida. I also have my resume and planning staff report to submit as part of the record. As Cammie indicated, I looked at primarily the issue relating to the freestanding emergency room, and this report will primarily address that issue. The Land Development Code does define a freestanding emergency room or an FER as providing surgical services, emergency care services on an outpatient basis. It provides a service to the community, and it also complements hospital emergency rooms as well as public emergency providers, fire, rescue type services. It disaggregates sort of the emergency room model, places these types of services closer to the community. It allows less critical type trauma cases to be handled more effectively, more efficiently. And as compared to an emergency room, it's substantially less intense in terms of cases. Very low rate of emergency vehicles actually arriving at the facility. The heavy or the more serious trauma cases will still be taken to a traditional ER at a hospital. When an emergency type vehicle arrives to the site, they typically don't have their emergency flashers, the sirens going, and again, based on the type of treatment that is provided at this type of use. Let me get the next one here. I think on its face, given the current use of the site, the characteristics of the site, there's the existing Ace Range Golf. There's a 160-foot wide power line easement that bifurcates the property, and then of course it has the RES 4 comp plan designation. So looking at those factors, having a non-residential office on the front and residential in the back makes sense from a site planning perspective. I think, as Cammie mentioned, the question is whether the FER type use is appropriately cited and consistent with the comp plan, including the commercial location standards. And I think the logic starts with the LDC in that if you look at the LDC, I think the question, or answering that question, is it consistent? I think it's substantially found in the LDC. An FER is permitted use in the BPO, Business Professional Office District, as well as the neighborhood commercial district as a conditional use. And there's two conditions, no helipad or helistop, and located on an arterial or collector roadway. This section of the code was amended in 2014, and so clearly the intent, I think this is like one of the major findings, was clearly the intent was to provide this type of use near residential. And I think this is even further, I think, played out in that an FER is permitted without these conditions in the heavier commercial type zoning classifications. And so I think I guess the summary statement with this slide is that if the conditions are met, which they are with this case, the use, this FER, functions as an office type use and thus does not promote strip commercial type development, which is the primary concern of the commercial location standards. The site is internally compatible. I think the graphic kind of displays that. Again, the office medical use is along the frontage adjacent to Boyette, which is a multi-lane major roadway, and then you see that separation between the two uses, the 160-foot TECO easement, and then you see the residential to the back, and then the water management facilities further. There is shared access at the existing signal. Shared access is consistent with planned developments that front on a major roadway and then are deep, so that it's not uncommon to have a shared access where you have commercial on the front and residential in the back. It's also compatible externally. There is no residential uses directly abutting the site. They're public or park type uses abut on all four sides if you include the 100-foot right-of-way for Boyette Road. And then internal to the site, there's an additional buffering. There's additional right-of-way dedication, buffering, and then again, you have the traditional building setbacks internal adjacent to Boyette Road. And then opposite Boyette, within the neighborhood called Boyette Oaks, there's an existing masonry wall directly adjacent to Boyette Road. So the community itself is already buffering itself from Boyette Road. Getting back to the commercial location standards, policy 22.6 includes exceptions for office type uses. And I'm going to provide, or I guess respond to each of those different points. One, the obvious thing is it's less than 5 acres. It also provides an appropriate transition and buffer from Boyette Road, nearby non-residential uses, and also provides that, as I discussed, that internal buffering between the commercial frontage and the residential to the rear. Given the pattern of non-residential development along Boyette Road in the vicinity and limitations given primarily because of the power line easement, I think it's clear that residential is not suitable where we are proposing the office medical use. By way of an example is BPO 170220. We kind of highlighted it's filled in purple. It's located further away from the nearest qualifying intersection. And a couple findings in that case from the Planning Commission were that these BPO parcels continue a pattern of non-residential development along this portion of Boyette Road, and also the finding that it does not meet locational criteria, but qualifies for an exception for office uses. And we think the same logic applies here for our project as well. Record supports consistency with the comp plan and compatibility with adjacent development. Thank you very much.
Let me just ask you one thing, just to clarify for the record. So would it be fair to say that your analysis is that the freestanding emergency room, it functions different than the emergency room that's typically attached to a hospital?
Yes.
And functions more in an office capacity because
Yes.
it receives less intense, less traumatic clients,
And no,
perhaps?
it doesn't have the overnight stays, other characteristics as well that differentiate it from the traditional ER at a hospital.
Thank you. That's what I needed.
Thank you very much.
If you could please sign in.
Cami Corbett again for the record. And just to that point, both Polk County and Pasco County treat freestanding emergency rooms as a medical office, so it's very similar. Do want to place into the record an email from the Gibbons family indicating that we can advise the hearing officer that their family does not object to the proposed site plan, and I'll be placing that into the record. And one last photo I want to put on the Elmo. Switch to that, the view to that. If you could see where the star is indicated in the far right of that picture, that is actually a Hillsborough County fire station. So with respect to sirens and ambulances and those types of things in this area is going to have that activity, whether this use is in place or not. And again, as I can't say your name, Mr. Stephen testified, Mr. Stephen testified that we do not have ambulances, or not this common way for people to come to this area, just given the nature of what goes on there. And here to answer any questions. I'm also going to place into the record the Planning Commission staff report from 220075, where the Planning Commission supported the commercial locational criteria waiver with the more intense uses.
Fair. All right, thank you so much. No questions. I did read in optics the change of heart of some of the positions of people that were commenting, so I appreciate that. All right, then with that, we'll go to Development Services. Good evening.
Good evening, Jared Fallon with Development Services. So as you heard, this is a request to rezone a parcel to a planned development to allow for the development of 57 single-family homes, 10,000 square feet of medical office uses, and 12,000 square feet for a freestanding emergency room. So the subject site is located on Boyette Road and consists of one folio. The current use on the property is a golf driving range, and that will be allowed to continue until such PD is developed and approved. The subject site is also within the urban service area and within the Riverview Community Plan. The surrounding area is mostly residential in nature, with some low-intensity commercial uses and community serving uses. Residential neighborhoods are located to the south across Boyette Road, to the northeast, and to the west. Also to the west, there are properties zoned BPO and OR, which are office zone districts. And they are currently occupied by residential uses, but some are operating home businesses. As far as the development itself, for the residential area, which is towards the north, the development standards, it'll be built at 4 dwelling units per acre. The lots that they're proposing will be a minimum of 2,400 square feet, and max height will be 35 feet. They are providing buffer yards, including a 20-foot type B along the eastern boundary and a type A 10-foot along the northern boundary. For the medical use, development standards will closely resemble the CN commercial neighborhood development standards in the LDC, but they are proposing a less intense FAR of 0.14, where 0.20 is typically allowed in CN. They are also providing enhanced buffers. They are providing a 20-foot type B along the west boundary and a 10-foot type A along the northern boundary. And also to mention, there is the large 160-foot TECO easement that separates the medical use area from the proposed residential area. And just to touch on the 24-hour emergency room, it is not like the typical larger emergency rooms you find in large hospitals. It's mostly going to be for small-scale services like scans, x-rays, blood work, stuff like that. This use is typically allowed in BPO and CN conditionally, and that condition is that it is located on a major roadway, which this site does front on. As the applicant stated, there won't be any overnight stays. And whenever there are more serious situations, they are going to be transferred to a larger hospital. I did want to point out, in my assessment, the closest hospital in this area, or large hospital, is about 7 miles away. So I do find that this is a beneficial use for this area, for the residents and the community. So based on that, we are supporting the PD and find it approvable.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site's designated as residential 4 on the future land use map. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan. The proposed residential use is reflective of the surrounding development pattern. However, the nature of the proposed 24-hour emergency room causes significant compatibility concerns. as the site is located in a low-density, low-intensity land use category and does not meet locational criteria for commercial uses. The proposal partially meets the intent of the neighborhood protection policies outlined in the future land use element, including policy direction in the community design component as well. The proposal includes appropriate setbacks and buffers for the residential portion in the northern part of the site. It also shows preservation of existing trees along the eastern boundary where feasible. In addition, the stormwater retention areas proposed within the development serve as a buffer. However, the residential use will share drive aisle with the emergency room and proposed medical office use to the south, which may not allow for a gradual transition of intensity between uses. In addition, the proposed 24-hour emergency room and medical office only have a 20-foot front setback, which may not complement the single-family residential to the south across Boyette Road. Given the operating characteristics of a 24-hour emergency room, the proposed use would be situated from a site design perspective in a location that would likely cause significant compatibility issues with the residential to the south. Overall, the request is inconsistent with the policy direction under Objective 16 and Community Design Component Objective 12-1 related to compatibility and neighborhood protection. The subject site does not meet commercial locational criteria in accordance with the Objective 22. The site is located west and approximately 2,500 linear feet from the intersection of Boyette Road and Bell Shoals Road, the nearest qualifying intersection. Planning Commission staff have evaluated the waiver request and notes that the operating characteristics of the 24-hour emergency room are not compatible with the surrounding existing residential uses to the south and northeast, nor the proposed residential uses in this proposed planned development. In the previous rezoning for this subject site, 22-0075, staff thoroughly vetted the list of smaller scale and less intense proposed uses and determined that 24-hour uses were not appropriate nor compatible. The surrounding development pattern has not changed significantly since that 2022 rezoning and still does not warrant an intensive 24-hour emergency room use on a site that does not meet locational criteria, and staff recommends denial of the waiver to that criteria. The site's located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan. Goal 1 of the plan strives to achieve better design and densities compatible with the Riverview vision. The policies under this goal aim to avoid commercial strip patterns and provide appropriate and compatible buffers and transitions to existing adjacent land uses. The request to have a 24-hour emergency room located directly adjacent to residential uses in the north, northeast, and south does not meet the intent of this policy direction, as there are no appropriate buffer or transition between uses, and the operating characteristics of this use would prohibit them from existing harmoniously. And just so we're clear with Planning Commission staff's position, we don't find the residential use to be incompatible. We find that to be, consistent with the comprehensive plan. The previous rezoning, there was a recommendation to waive the locational criteria based on the scale of the neighborhood commercial uses, and specifically they were not 24-hour uses. And so based on that, based on these considerations, the staff finds this plan development inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
Let me just follow up a couple things, just real quick. I understand the Planning Commission's argument regarding the 24-hour nature of the use. I understand that's very clear in the staff report as to the position. What I wanted to ask is about the consideration of the 160-foot TECO easement that separates this medical use, both the office and the freestanding emergency room, from the residential, in terms of the argument that it doesn't, the Planning Commission's argument that this does not provide for adequate transition. Is that a consideration, that significant utility easement?
I think that definitely provides a good buffer, but I think the concern mainly is the shared access and kind of, the operating characteristics of, folks coming in and out 24 hours around the clock, and just, how does that operate harmoniously with the residential uses. That it's just, typical neighborhood commercial uses have, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type of operating characteristics. It's just that there's just kind of an unknown factor of how this 24-hour use with the shared drive aisle, could operate on the same type of.
And lastly, does the Planning Commission consider the operational difference of that freestanding emergency room that is separate from a hospital and take that into consideration?
I think we're just, we're not really viewing it as a hospital. We're viewing it as, what it's called, a freestanding emergency room. So, it's understood that it's not an entire hospital, but we are just looking at the operating characteristics. We're in a low-density residential future land use category. No matter what the proposed use is, we rarely are going to find a 24-hour use compatible in this type of land use designation, especially if it's not meeting the criteria close to those major intersections.
All right, that answers my question. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, we'll go to testimony in support. I know we have one person online that would like to speak in support. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak in favor? All right, seeing no one, Ms. Hammer. I understand you're online. There you are.
I am.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ethel Hammer. My address is 19825 Angel Lane in Odessa. I'm here this evening in my capacity as the Vice President of the Tampa Bay Conservancy. As you know from the prior application, the Conservancy owns the property that is to the immediate north and east of the subject rezoning. Our preserve is a 60-acre pristine property that fronts on the Alafaya River. Our interest in this rezoning and any proposed development on this property would be to ensure the future development of this site does not have a negative impact on our nature preserve. The applicant for this rezoning application has worked extensively with the Conservancy and the neighborhood as well to propose a project that met our goals and would be consistent and compatible with the surrounding land uses. They proposed a use that was compatible, and I would say a use that in fact was desired by many of the neighbors in the community. I spoke with residents to the south and to the east, and they were delighted to know that this would be the use that would be on this property and felt that it would be an asset to their neighborhood. The Conservancy does not object as long as the following conditions are met. And I will say right from the start that these are in fact conditions that have been agreed to by the developer, but I want to get them on the record. First of all, there would be no lighting in the area designated as retention or floodplain compensation on the site plan. Secondly, there is a very dense area of existing mature vegetation along the eastern property boundary. And that occupies approximately the eastern 20 feet of the subject property, which then immediately runs into the vegetation on the preserve. So it's seamless. So we would like that vegetation preserved in totality next to the area of the retention of floodplain compensation area. Also, in the southern portion of the site, south of the Tico easement, in the area designated as the medical use. And then in the middle of the site where it's designated as residential, we want as many of those trees preserved as possible. We understand that there are some possible grading issues that might necessitate the removal of some of the trees, but they have agreed to continue to work with us as they develop the site plan going forward. They've also committed to a 6-foot wooden Trex fence that would be erected outside the 20-foot vegetative area, the mature tree area. So that would be on the western extent of the 20-foot buffer because of all the existing trees. The Conservancy does not object to the emergency room use. We feel that that would not have an impact on the preserve. So I wanted to get that on the record as well. Given the uses as limited on the site plan and the mitigative measures that have been taken to correct any impacts on the preserve, we do not object to the proposed rezoning. And I want to thank the developers very much for taking the time, meeting us in the field several times and working with us at a very minute scale. I'm talking tree by tree. So thank you very much. And that concludes my comments.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hammer, I appreciate it. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in support before we move on? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? All right, no one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
The only thing I wanted to add is some of the items that Ms. Hammer spoke to, which of course she can work with the developer and they could privately agree to that. It appears, with the exception of the fence type along the west, those are not in our conditions of approval and aren't typically things that we would look at, like lighting of retention areas, and natural resources will look at tree preservation, but just to make you aware, those are not in the proposed conditions of approval.
All right, thank you so much.
Except for the fencing on the west.
The Trex fence, understood. All right, thank you. Ms. Corbett, time for rebuttal if you have any.
Yes, Cammie Corbett for the record. I do think some of the notes are on the site plan, Michelle. I think if you will see there are notes regarding retaining existing vegetation on the site plan, because we did agree to all of these conditions. They were talked through multiple times. So to the extent that there's something that needs to be indicated on the site plan or in the conditions, otherwise we're happy to work on that. But we actually thought we did capture them on the site plan, and Ms. Hammer, I think, had the opportunity to review the site plan prior to us moving forward to the hearing this evening. A couple of things I wanted to point out about the Planning Commission. You were asking about incompatibility with the residential to the north. Their report actually talks about residential to the south, and they're talking about compatibility to the south and adding that there was only a 20-foot buffer, but as you saw in our presentation, there's 20 feet plus 8 feet plus 100 feet. So it's 138 feet to those residents to the south. So we just want to make sure that's clear. They didn't actually raise the residents to the north, so perhaps maybe whoever was drafting the report was, maybe the TICO easement did mitigate that. The other thing I want to point out is they really don't state in their report, and I didn't really hear anything this evening, what specifically about the operational characteristics of the freestanding emergency room are problematic. We submitted evidence in the record, and it was testified to this evening about the low intensity use of this particular 24-hour use. And I really don't hear anything other than the mere fact that it's open 24 hours is a problem. Now, important to note, in the prior zoning, there were no 24-hour uses allowed, but there were no hours of operation restrictions. So we could have had a fitness gym that was open 22 hours a day and would have complied with the zoning condition. We were also allowed a restaurant or a beer garden or a brewery, while not open 24 hours, have far more impact on a surrounding neighborhood than a freestanding emergency room. So a little bit confused by the analysis there. And again, we really didn't hear anything specific that said there is this aspect of the development that perhaps we could condition or somehow change or talk to our end user and see if we could address those specific concerns. But it really did come down to what seems like a more generalized concern about compatibility, but all of the letters of support in the record acknowledge that we are requesting the 24-hour use, and they support the application. So to the extent that there's any compatibility concerns with anyone that lives in the area, I really don't think that those exist within the community. And so we would respectfully request that you review our planning report and take that into consideration in your finding. And we'd respectfully request your approval.
All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0538. We're a little past our normal break, so we'll take a 5-minute break. By the back of the clock, if you could be back at 8:25. Thank you. All right, welcome back to the July 22nd, 2024 zoning hearing master hearing. We're back from our break. And Ms. Heinrich, we are ready to call the next case.
Our next application is item D5, PD 24-0676. The applicant is requesting to rezone property that is ASC1 and AS1 to planned development. Jared Folan with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation. And you should have a revised staff report that makes corrections to condition 12, which adds the option of a sidewalk to that improvement. And there were some date changes that were updates and conditions 14, 15, and 16.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening, David Smith, 401 East Jackson Street, 33601. Director of Development and Zoning for Stearns Weaver Miller, here to represent the petitioner tonight, which is Public Storage. I'll try to go through this fairly straight. This is a fairly straightforward application. The location of the property is at the northwest corner of Simmons Road and Old Big Bend Frontage Road. A lot has been happening in this area relative to the frontage road, and let me just give you some context of how we fit into that on the Elmo. So our development is at this intersection. Again, here's Old Big Bend Road. Here is Simmons. And most recently, Camden came in for a very large rezoning on the old HCA hospital site. It had multifamily. It had multiple commercial uses, some medical warehousing and production, quite a large development. As part of their development, they agreed to a series of conditions to realign Old Big Bend Road, connect a new connection to Lincoln Road, eventually provide a direct connection, a new intersection for Simmons at Big Bend. Our project is right at the intersection, or the epicenter of the future intersection, and it's this piece right here. As part of our development, I can go back to the presentation. So as
Mr. Smith, if you could bring that microphone back with you.
Yep.
There you go, perfect.
Thank you. When we look at this, we have UMU 20, future land use, that allows 1.0 FAR. Right now, we have agricultural zoning. The Camden PD 220461 is immediately to our east. There had been a previously rezoning at this whole corner, which has been basically withdrawn, and the northern part of that old rezoning on the same side of the street as us will be coming in separately for a PD. Here again gives you the overall context in the community plan. It's in the area-wide, South Shore area-wide community plan. It's also in the Riverview community plan. This area is really set up for a mixed-use residential transition area along the heavily traveled old Big Bend Road. This is the site plan for the development. It's a mini warehouse facility. It's at 0.78 FAR. The location of this and its access, which is I was kind of leading up to, you can see in the site plan when the red striped area, that is the right-of-way that's being dedicated to the county for the ultimate development of the future section that incorporates the Camden improvements. Also, we are going to be building 2 lanes of Simmons Road to kind of kickstart that activity. We're not sure how long it will take to get the realignment of Old Big Bend Road in place. However, our development generates so few trips that it's able to move forward at this time with only one mitigation, and that is the striping of a turn lane on a northbound left turn lane on Lincoln, which is the pinch point in this area. Again, as I kind of previewed, we have a main building height of a maximum of 50 feet. We have the single-story buildings that are a maximum of 20 feet. will be compliant with all the special requirements for mini warehouse development within the LDC. We have a 20-foot type B buffer on the north and west, and we have setbacks of 30 feet on all sides. On the far western side of the property, we have a preservation area. Again, this preservation area is put in place to provide for support for the realignment of Old Big Bend Road when that should occur. So you can see that this property has tried to take extra effort to make sure that it wasn't an impediment, but it would further the realignment of Old Big Bend Road, which is in the county's plans and also needed for Camden to develop out their project. Surrounding us, we have future land use categories, UMU 20, north, south, and east. We have PQP. This is the county park. The Y is immediately, I would say immediately, it's a large piece of property, so the Y is pretty far away, but the park land is immediately abutting our property on the east side. We've included in the application an exhibit. This is not part of the certified plan, but it gives a picture of what's happening out here relative to the eventual development of a connection to Big Bend Road with a new intersection. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner, our access will be directly to the improved Simmons Road. That condition will continue until such time as other improvements to Simmons Road are made by Camden as they move forward with their phasing. At such time as that happens and we get to phase 3, we've already provided for cross-access or shared access opportunity to the property owner to the north. When the full section of Simmons is improved, and there you can see the left turn, kind of a U-turn made available, a median cut. We will close our access point, and our access will then be together with the property owner to the north. When that property becomes developed, zoned and developed, they will have a companion requirement in order to provide access at that left turn in the phase 4 condition. So,
Could I interrupt you just 1 second, just as it pertains to this slide? So the phasing pertains to the transition, the evolution of the transportation and access improvements. That has nothing to do with a building, per se.
it has nothing to do with us. So when we come in and build our site plan, it will be phase 1. We'll have our access to Simmons. What this is trying to provide is visually of how this will not interfere with or otherwise complicate the ultimate build-out and realignment of Old Big Bend and the widening of Simmons. We're providing the right-of-way. We're building a couple lanes that can be utilized as part of that section at the ultimate build-out. And then when all the turn lanes are in and this median cut is put in place, our access will close and we'll be utilizing a shared access to that median cut.
Understood. Thank you for that.
We do have some variations, and really the variations are quite simple. We have a variation from the Old Big Bend frontage road substandard road requirements. County engineers found those approvable. We have a design exception to the typical road section, which is really the Simmons loop, or Simmons Road standards. Again, it was found that developing the 2 lanes with the 10-foot sidewalk in that section rather than the typical section for TS4 would further the ultimate build-out better than having to build a TS4 section. Design exception 2 is from the turn lane lengths for northbound and westbound. Again, that's the Lincoln Road mitigation. Again, because of the number of the trips that we generate, which are so little, we're allowed to move forward without anything else happening other than the improvements we're putting in place with the mitigation on Lincoln Road. A county engineer found that approvable. Here's just a chart that shows, right now there's nothing happening on those sides essentially. So we have, 237 daily, 15 in the AM, 25 PM peak. So while it is a change in the number of trips generated from the existing condition, which doesn't really have development, to our proposed condition, it's a very low trip generator. So the only variation to the actual code is really in response to a request from staff. Staff has asked us to make that stub out connection to the northern property line with our first increment of development. We're only going to have one increment. So we're going to come in and get our construction plan approved, build the self-storage facility, construct our access to Simmons, and then also construct the stub out to our northern property line. In order to do that, though, we had this variation request that's needed to allow us just to put a fence in that section where that stub out is going, and also not to have to plant trees that will eventually have to be torn out at that point. So that's the only variation that's being associated and requested for this project. Again, the Riverview Community Plan, identifies this area down at the star. When you look at this, it says residential, but in this portion, the scale is pretty off on these old community plans, and we have a mixed-use corridor, we have mixed-use development immediately abutting us, and then we have park immediately to our west. So this is really part of the transitional area, light commercial, low trip generation, with the heavier commercial and higher density residential really improved in the Camden development. Again, the South Shore area-wide systems plan is quite a large plan, but again, we're consistent with that. Again, we're coordinating transportation planning to accommodate future development and protect future rights-of-way. We're dedicating right-of-way, we're preserving corridors, and we're constructing portions of the ultimate sections that's expected here. I won't go through all the policies, but we are consistent with numerous objectives of the comprehensive plan, the community design components. And when you look at staff's review, they found it approvable subject to conditions. They found it to provide ample buffering and screening. The location of the 50-foot building is in line with where a 2-to-1 setback would otherwise apply. Again, noting that the development to our north right now is not zoned, but for agricultural, so that buffer and that setback would kick in. And the site is on a major roadway and is surrounded by other non-residential uses and multifamily. Planning Commission and Development Services staff found one approvable subject conditions. Planning Commission found it consistent with the comprehensive plan, and glad to answer any questions, but we would respectfully ask for a recommendation for approval. We have our full team here and the developer as well to answer any questions.
The only question I had pertained to that PD variation, but your slide explained it perfectly,
Okay.
so that's it.
Great.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to sign in.
Yeah.
All right, Development Services.
Good afternoon. This is Jared Follins, Development Services. So yes, this is a request to rezone a parcel to planned development to facilitate the development of mini warehouses comprised of 3 buildings with a total square footage of 163,400 feet. For context, the majority of the surrounding area is undeveloped, but it does consist of zoning districts such as for agricultural, commercial, residential, and PD zoning districts. There is a large PD to the east and to the south. To the east, this large PD, it's undeveloped, but it was recently approved in, let's see here, 2022. And this PD is allowing for medical uses, freestanding emergency room, and also 900 multifamily units. The property is located along Big Bend Road, which is just east of Highway 75. For the development standards, so as I stated, there's 3 buildings. The larger building is situated towards the middle of the site and will have a maximum height of 50 feet, while the two outer buildings that are smaller will have a max height of 20 feet. As was stated by the applicant, there is going to be a sort of phasing with the public improvements, which include the realignment of old Big Bend Road, which is sort of the outer road there. And I would like to defer to James Ratliff, who should be on right now, to discuss those and the transportation report.
All right. Mr. Ratliff, are you available? I don't see you.
Yes, hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm sharing my screen as well. Hopefully that's coming through.
I do see it.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be brief tonight. The transportation staff report in tonight's presentation really just kind of makes reference to those improvements that are required by 220461, which is the project to the east, the Camden project that you heard about earlier. And so essentially this slide that we put together just kind of summarizes the ultimate build-out condition of that project. And I thought it would be helpful to put something in the record that kind of showed where the improvements for this project are in relation to those improvements, just kind of graphically. And so as you can see here on this next slide, you've got that 100-foot right-of-way preservation area. You've got that area where this project is going to have to make those substandard road improvements, essentially constructing 2 lanes of a much larger section of that future Simmons Road, as well as some additional right-of-way. It's not specified there, but there's some additional right-of-way that they're dedicating along that frontage as well. I do want to caution, just when you're looking at this, again, the alignment, this is, very, I would say, just drawn for conceptual purposes. These are not actual alignments you're seeing. The extent that the roads are going to be on certain properties or on Parks properties, that hasn't been determined yet. But that 100 feet of right-of-way will be available for future roadway alignment, stormwater needs, or things related to that old Big Bend Road realignment project. So again, just showing those 3 improvements. Again, we've got those 2 I just mentioned, and then the interim turn lane here at Lincoln Road, the northbound. And again, it's called interim because in the ultimate condition, old Big Bend Road and its current location will be removed in favor of the plan is for this realigned old Big Bend Road to be pushed back further to the north. And so again, this turn lane is temporary until such time as the rest of the elements of this plan are effectuated. And just 2 more slides for you really here. This is showing an excerpt from the 22-461 regulatory plan that shows a little bit more detail of what that intersection is going to look like in its ultimate configuration. And again, this developer will construct two lanes in here that will be used ultimately as a part of this final configuration. And the final slide here is just these 2 things put side by side so that as you're going through, if you're trying to figure out what's where, you can compare those 2 things. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I did want to just point out one thing. I think I heard earlier that there was talking about putting a sidewalk option in. I did want to clarify that it was just cleaning up the language in the condition to call it a sidewalk / MPP or multi-purpose path. The requirement is to construct a 10-foot wide facility kind of regardless of what you call it. So, and that's consistent with the design exception. So I did just want to clarify that for the record. And with that, I'll happy to answer any questions.
So it's an either or, it's not one way or the other is what you're saying?
It's a 10-foot wide facility. You could call it a 10-foot wide sidewalk. You could call it a 10-foot wide multi-purpose path. But essentially, it's meant to accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians, and it will be 10 feet wide.
And it's paved in some fashion?
Correct.
Okay, understood. And I appreciate the graphic. Thank you, that helps.
Great.
All right, thanks for your testimony. I appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, sorry, real quick, I just wanted to mention that there is a single-family home to the north. The development is buffering with a 20-foot type B along that northern boundary, but it is expected that area to the north, including that single-family property, will be redeveloped in the near future.
All right, understood. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site is designated as Urban Mixed Use 20 on the future land use map. It's in the urban service area and located within the Gibsonton, Riverview, and South Shore area-wide systems community plans. Based on the existing development pattern, the proposed storage facilities are compatible with the surrounding area and meets Objective 1 in Policy 1.4. The proposal includes a floor area ratio of 0.69, which is under the maximum intensity of 1.0. That is considered for this urban mixed-use 20 category. Therefore, it meets the intent of Objective 7 and associated policies. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element Objective 16 and accompanying policies that require new development to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component of the future land use element require new developments to recognize the existing community and to be designed to relate to and be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is a mix of uses, mainly comprised of public/quasi-public institutional uses, vacant land, single-family residential, and agriculture. As mentioned, the site's within the limits of 3 community planning areas, Gibsonton, Riverview, and South Shore area-wide systems. The proposal meets the intent of many of the goals outlined in these plans relating to housing diversity, residential, economic development, and transportation. Based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds that the proposed plan development is consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? No one. Anyone in opposition? All right, seeing no one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll go back to the applicant. Mr. Smith, anything? All right. Not at this time, thank you. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0676 and go to the next case.
Our next item is item D6, Major Mod 24-0678. The applicant is requesting a major modification of PD 04-1683. Tanya Chapella with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation, and you should have received a revised staff report which makes some corrections to some square footages.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Yes, Ms. Finch, this is David Mechanic. I represent the applicant.
Good evening. Could you give us your name and address?
David Mechanic, 305 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. I am here with Randy Cohen, who is a transportation planner, and he is also a certified planner, as am I. And I'd like to just briefly go through our presentation. This is a substance abuse treatment facility that was established in the year 2000. I would just like to note that the Planning Commission staff indicated that the proposed development is consistent with neighborhood protection policies and the comprehensive plan. What we are proposing is an increase in the amount of treatment beds in the facility. We currently have 10, and we would like to increase that to a total of 34 beds. What's noteworthy about that increase is that we are not proposing any new construction in terms of expanding a building or building a new building. There'll be no changes to the physical characteristics of the site. So if we add these beds, we will be reducing other medical uses within the building. And the net result of that is actually a slight reduction in traffic. We are requesting no variances whatsoever. If you review the staff report, you will see that there are no objections from any agencies or staff who review the applications. We also note that the Planning Commission has determined that the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the county staff has determined that it is approvable, or actually they are recommending approval of the application. And we would respectfully request your approval this evening, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just two quick questions, Mr. Mechanic. First, it wasn't clear to me until I think you just said this, that the reduction in the trips is because you're actually going to reduce the medical office piece, and that results, even though you're adding beds to the facility, the medical office piece is reduced?
Yes, that's correct, and Mr. Cohen is here and can go into as much detail on that subject as you would like. I would just like to point out the reduction occurs simply because the uses that we would be removing would have a higher trip rate than the treatment beds, and therefore you wind up with a small, and I don't want to exaggerate here, it's a small reduction, it's not a significant reduction in traffic.
No, I understand, and I think that's all the clarification I need. And then my second question was the change to the conditions. I read that there was an oversight in the last modification that excluded entitlements that were previously approved. And
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that was actually the last modification simply carried forward the error that occurred in 2014. Neither I nor Randy Cohen were involved in the 2014 amendment. We were involved in the 2022, and we were unaware of the error and therefore simply repeated it for purposes of the amendment that we processed in 2022. But I believe everything, Michelle did a good job sorting through the inconsistency and the oversight, and I think we've got it all straightened out now, and you will see, and we agree, I should have mentioned this, we agree with all the revisions in the staff report. But I am sorry, I think I interrupted you, so please ask your question if I prevented you from doing that.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that chain of events and that it results in an increase in the square footage, but that represents previously approved square footage. So I think that's it. All right, those were the end of my questions, unless you had anything else, Mr. Mechanic?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. Then we'll go to Development Services. Good evening.
Good evening. Tanya Chapela, Development Services. The existing PD is approved for a maximum of 9,800 square feet of professional administrative office, health practitioner's office, intensive outpatient care, and a professional residential facility. The facility is permitted a maximum of 10 residents. The applicant is requesting to add 24 beds to obtain a total of 34 beds. Non-residential entitlements were unintentionally removed from Major Mod 220782. Also, Area 2 was not depicted in Major Mod 220782. Major Mod 24678 is fixing those changes. No changes have been proposed to the existing buildings. Staff finds the request comparable to the existing uses, and it is compatible with the development pattern along this portion of Sheldon Road. The density and intensity proposed are under the CMU 12 maximum density of 12 dwelling units per acre and a 0.5 FAR. Staff recommends approval subject to conditions, and this concludes my presentation. Available for questions.
Ms. Chappelle, just one clarification. You're testimony was that it's a maximum of 9,800 square feet of professional, administrative office, et cetera. But the first condition changes it to 15,000 square feet. I just want to
You
make
are
sure.
correct. It should
Okay.
be 15,000.
In the front. Okay, perfect. That's all I had. Thank you so much. Is that correct?
The entitlements are coming from a previous approval. So if we are getting on area 1 is 9,800, area 2 will be 5,200, and that adds 15,000 square feet, although they were not approved in the last modification, 2022. So technically, as it is right now, it is approved for 9,800, but if we're considering fixing those issues, because those changes would not be allowed anyway because of legal reasons, they would have need approval from the owner. So those changes would have never occurred. So it is 15,000 square feet if we go either, to the beginning. So,
I'm
yes.
just trying to ensure that that condition is correct, so it's 15.
It is correct, yes.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site is located in the Community Mixed Use 12 Future Land Use Designation. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Town and Country Community Plan. The proposed medical offices and professional residence facility in the urban service area is compatible with the existing character of the development, as it is located on an arterial roadway with other offices and light commercial uses along this corridor. Per Objective 8, the future land use categories outline the maximum level of intensity or density and range of permitted land uses in each category. The number of beds that are being requested and the amount of non-residential square footage being requested fits within the intended residential intensity and residential density and intensity for the Community Mixed Use 12 land use designation. The proposal meets the intent of the neighborhood protection policies outlined in the future land use element, including policy direction and the community design component. The proposed medical office and professional residential facility is consistent with the community scale commercial development that's intended for this land use designation. Based on these considerations, staff finds the proposed major modification is compatible with the existing development in the area and finds it consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. And just to clarify, our staff report that we filed, the analysis is based on the numbers that were shown on the site plan and optics at the time. So my understanding is that there might be some tweaking of the numbers or changes to the numbers. But just to be clear, our Planning Commission staff's analysis is based on the plan that was in optics at the time we filed that report.
Understood. Thank you so much. All right, is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Mechanic, anything before we close?
No, nothing to add. Well, one quick thing, and that is the 9,800 square foot building is an existing building and has been in existence for quite some time. So there's never been a question about the propriety of the square footage or the existence of that building.
And there's no plan to expand that building to accommodate this change?
We do not plan to expand it, nor have we sought any change that would allow for that as well.
All right, well, thank you so much, I appreciate that.
Thank you. We appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. All right, then we'll close major modification 24-0678 and go to the next case.
Our next application is item D7, PD 24-0791. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from AR to Plan Development. Tim Lampkin with Development Services will provide staff findings. And also, I would note, this is a application that is scheduled for the August 13th BOCC meeting, which is in the revised staff report. But just so for anyone listening or attending tonight, that is scheduled for the 8/13 BOCC land use meeting.
Right, and I have agreed to do an expedited decision, or a recommendation by August 6th of 2024.
Yes,
to meet that. All right, thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Isabel Albert with half 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 900. I'm here tonight to discuss this 49-acre site that's located in the Waimama Community Plan. It's on the east side of Westlake Drive, south of Brigham Avenue. And it is also located in the urban service area and also within the Waimama Downtown Subdistrict, which is the downtown overlay, residential overlay. More specifically, just to zoom out a little bit, the property to the north of us in purple, that is the school board multi-campus school campus, which will have a pre-K to 12th grade. And then just north of that, that little dark area, that's Lake Waimama. To the south of us is a development that was recently approved for 299 units with a mixture of single-family, residential, and townhomes. And to the east of us is the South Shore Bay, also known as where the lagoon is located. So the area is predominantly residential with some retail commercial. The zoning is residential 4 and the the comp plan is residential 4 and the zoning is agricultural rural. So here's the request for tonight. This is for residential development, requesting a planned development to allow single-family units on the west side for 72 units, and on the east side with the more orange shaded area, that's for a row house development, also known as a townhome development. And this is, I stated earlier, located in the downtown overlay district, and there's these new regulations in the Land Development Code, Section 3.23.00, that has these additional requirements, regulations to develop these sites, which we meet all of them. Part of the request is also requesting a flex of the residential 6, as shown here, and Planning Commission reviewed that and found that we met numerous policies in the comprehensive plan. And each of these developments will have their own community area, community gathering places. We had a neighborhood meeting back earlier this year, and the main topics of discussion was transportation and environmental. Transportation, we are improving Westlake Drive. We did request a design exception, which was found to be approvable. We're also constructing an east-west road to connect from Westlake to the Roosevelt Drive to the east. We're also constructing a north-south road in order to connect to the development to the south that I mentioned earlier. We are also going to construct a portion of this road, as well as a portion of that road, and these are all requirements of the new Waimama regulations. In terms of environmental, Clementi environmental consultant, who is here tonight, prepared a wildlife and plant survey report. This property has in the past had some scrub jays, and from review with her and other agencies, they found that there was no scrub jays presence on the site, and that's in the environmental report that's in the record, and I'll submit one again. But they did find some golden aster, and through work with staff, we were able to increase the preservation area as a compensation area as shown on the site plan. And with that, the work with Ms. Clementi and staff found that approvable. Again, all reviewing agency found this application approvable and no objections from anyone from reviewing agencies, and I'm here if you have any questions.
No questions at this time, but thank you so much. Don't forget to sign in. Development Services.
Good evening, Tim Lampkin, Development Services. Michelle already had mentioned the only revision to the report was changing the date on the cover page and the headers to the August land use meeting. The applicant's proposing to develop approximately 49-acre property. It's located on the east side of Westlake Drive and south of Brigman. The request is to rezone from agricultural rural to planned development. They're proposing to develop 144 row house units and 72 single-family homes for a total of 216 dwellings. And as the applicant stated, they're proposing a flex of the Res 6 flue from the east to allow the unit count density. The subject property is surrounded on the north by agricultural and larger lot single-family homes. Immediately south of the subject property is PD 21-0959, which was approved in 2022 for up to 299 single-family attached and detached residential units on about 74 acres. That application was filed prior to the effective date of the Waimama downtown overlay and was not subject to the downtown residential subdistrict requirements. Also south is PD 22-0443, which was subject to the new Waimama development standards. Together, both approved planned developments to the south have changed the character of the immediate area to the south from a rural character to a more typical suburban character development. The applicant is proposing an internal circulation, street stub outs to connect adjacent neighborhoods. They're also showing as the applicant stated, they have an aster plant preservation area that they're proposing to relocate to another area to create a larger aster preservation area. The site plan does meet all the requirements of LDC section 6.06.06, buffering and screening. The applicant is required to provide a 5-foot buffer type A along the western boundary of the row house lots adjacent to the AR zoning. The applicant proposes the attached residential homes comply with LDC section 323.05, which is table 5-2 with no waivers requested. The site will comply with, conform to all the applicable policies, including the Land Development Code. Planning Commission found the proposed rezoning meets the intent of the Waimama Community Plan and would be consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Staff finds the request approvable. And that concludes my presentation, unless you have any questions.
No questions, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. The subject site's located in the Residential 4 Future Land Use Designation. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Waimama Community Plan and South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 in policies 1.2 and 1.4 of the Future Land Use element by providing growth within the urban service area. The minimum density for the subject site would be 157 dwelling units, and the applicant is proposing 216 dwelling units, meeting the minimum density requirements listed under policy 1.2. And this density is appropriate in the Residential 4 Future Land Use Designation. The applicant is requesting a flex of the Residential 6 category from the east, 9.7 acres of the subject site. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the request for consistency with the flex provisions under policy 7.3 and 7.4 and has determined that it's appropriately applied. Through the proposed 216 dwelling units, they exceed the maximum permitted density in the Residential 4 category. The request is found consistent and compatible with the surrounding development pattern. The application is also consistent with the Objective 16 and associated policies in the future land use element relating to neighborhood development and neighborhood protection. The applicant is proposing an internal circulation and street stub outs to connect to the adjacent neighborhoods while also being sensitive to the environmentally sensitive land on site. And this meets the intent of future land use element policy 16.7 and Waimama Community Plan goal number 5. The request is consistent with goal number 2 of Waimama Community Plan, as there's a large focus on open spaces, which include a community gathering space, wetland conservation area, and retention areas. The request is consistent also with Goal 6 of the community plan, as the proposal fosters an economically integrated community by not being gated and provides housing to accommodate a diverse population and income level by providing various style of residential units. And based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? All right, no one. Ms. Heinrich.
Just one more thing before the item closes. We noticed that we originally had an authorization for agent that listed both Mr. Malloy and Ms. Albert, and then we received a revised one on 6-4, which crossed her out and put only his name. So if he could just put in the record that he's authorized her to speak.
I'm sure it wasn't personal.
Correct.
William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard. Good evening. I assure you, Ms. Albert is authorized to testify on our behalf.
Thank you so much. If you could please sign in. Yeah. All right, thank you. So, Ms. Albert, now that you're authorized to speak, do you have anything you'd like to say in rebuttal?
I actually just want to put into the record an error in the Planning Commission staff report, page 3, when we're just talking about Goal 2. She didn't state it, but because we spoke earlier, but the report says that we have significant wildlife habitat on our site, which I believe what they wanted to write was the aster preservation and not significant wildlife. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close.
Oh, no, actually, I'm sorry. We do have a letter of support that was put into the record from Sandy Merman. So she was here, but she had to leave, so she did write a letter of support.
Okay,
She used to sit right there.
I did see her, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0791 and go to the last case.
Our last item is item D8, Major Mod 24-0805. The applicant is requesting a major modification to PD 070269. I reviewed this for Development Services and will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Master. My name is Tyler Hudson. I'm a partner with the law firm Gardner Brewer Hudson. My address is 400 North Ashley Drive. In deference to the patience of our supporters and experts and where we are in the hour, I'm going to avoid an individualized introduction, but trust that we have a phalanx of experts and supporters here. We have, I think, 70 support letters in optics, and again, knowing we were last on the agenda, we ask that they express their support in writing and not in person.
I did see them.
Let's jump in. So this is for Berkeley Preparatory School. The site is about 80 acres. As you can see, it's a bit of a funny shaped site, which is consistent with the fact that it was assembled over time. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, as befits the Res 6, Res 20 land use. Berkeley's been in the community since 1960. It's only been on the site since 1979, and it is a co-ed day school for pre-K through high school. Bit of zoning history, so it really goes back to 2001 when the PD was initially created, and that itself was just additive of a further 28 acres that were added to the now 80-acre site. Then in 2007, there were some additional property added along with additional access, which brings us to the now there's 4 access points for the site. And then back in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID, there was a very minor change approved via PRS to create a chapel building. What we're here today to do is to really align the regulations with where Berkeley is today and where Berkeley expects to be in the near term to come. So the current approvals, again, the site's outlined, is for 1,200 students, and that's really kind of ties to what was then seen as the access pattern, about 385,000 square feet. The site plan is incredibly detailed, sort of like to a Where's Waldo level, and so I think if there is any future updates to the entitlement plan, we talked to staff about potentially reducing the detail in this site plan, but candidly, we're trying to get the buildings that are hopefully going to get approved by this application up and running by the August 2025 school year. So time was a bit of the essence, but it is a bit of an unusual site plan, which we'll concede. And with that, Addie Clark from my team is going to walk through the proposed changes.
Thank you. You could sign in, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Addie Clark, 400 North Ashley Drive. So as Tyler mentioned, the request before you tonight is to increase the student population. Currently is approved of 1,200 students with just over 385,000 square feet. And the request is to increase that to 1,600 students and to allow just a minimal increase in square footage to accommodate those students. As you can see, the floor area ratio is still significantly below what is allowable today. And here, this is the blue circles are depicting the relative expansion areas. And as you can see, where we are proposing minor expansion is well within the site. So well buffered from and not adjacent to any residentially zoned property and deep kind of internal to the site. And just wanted to point out that EPC did not have any objections to this. And of course, we will continue to coordinate them during permitting per usual. And then, of course, as we all know, the Tampa Bay region is booming. And with increases in population, of course, comes the need for school capacity to increase, which is the reason we're before you tonight. And Berkeley has been and will continue to be a community institution and a great neighbor. The school will be providing multiple off-site improvements that will promote the overall safety of those traveling to and from the school or within around the community in general. And those improvements you can see here, an addition of a southbound left turn lane and a northbound right turn lane on Kelly Road at the primary access point. And then 900 linear feet of new sidewalk along Exeter Way. And then finally, an addition of shared bicycle lane markings and signage along Bray Road. And those were all found, the various design exceptions and administrative variances were found approvable by the county engineer. And as part of the master plan to allow for this additional student capacity, a very detailed analysis was conducted, and updates to the colored placard system were made to ensure that queuing and parking could be contained entirely on the site. The school has structured drop-off and pickup procedures that use staff and third-party security officers positioned at various locations throughout the site for morning drop-off and afternoon pickup. We've collaborated with staff to update this plan and to account for the new students and to ensure proper distribution among those 4 existing access points. And again, the majority of the students use Kelly Road where those new turn lanes will be implemented. And in addition, Berkeley will conduct an annual monitoring study to ensure continual functional smooth operations. And this detailed drop-off and pickup plan and special event parking plan and traffic analyses have been reviewed by staff and found to sufficiently accommodate existing and future students. And finally, we're appreciative of staff's reviews and findings of consistencies across all departments. And now I'd like to pass to Headmaster Seivold, who's here virtually, to discuss the vision for the future and the need for this request.
Could I ask you one question before we move on?
Of course.
So I understand the increase in students, and I just wanted to clarify. So the increase in the floor area ratio, that 24,000 plus square footage, that represents new construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, expansion, new construction, yes.
All right. And then the parking will be accommodated commensurate with that?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
we can go to the next speaker.
Okay. He is virtually.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you, Addie, zoning hearing master. Thank you very much. Joseph Seivold, headmaster of Berkeley Preparatory School, now in my 14th year in service to our outstanding institution. And I'll just take a minute to say I very much appreciate consideration on this matter. From our very founding, Berkeley Preparatory School has a mission that says, 1, we need to provide, have to provide, mission-driven to provide the best possible environment to nurture the development of each child in our care, and then also to develop a strong sense of morality, ethics, and social responsibility in the students that we educate. And I'm very proud of our ability to deliver on both aspects of that mission. Now, given the time in our school's history, is the time to expand somewhat, that the pressure is on us to add a few more seats, if you will, and some additional square footage. And more importantly, in my opinion, to continue our outstanding partnership with Town & Country and Hillsborough County. We work hard to be great partners with the people of Town & Country. I think that that's been reflected in any number of programs that we've instituted, the fact that there's no opposition to this proposal, and I'm very pleased to share that the school that we have been since our founding it gets better every day and will continue to get better, and our commitment to be even deeper with the approval of this proposal. So thank you for that.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. I appreciate it. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. Then we'll go to Development Services.
Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. As you heard from the presentation, the site is the existing Berkeley Preparatory Private School, which is in the Town and Country area. Staff reviewed the request to increase the number of students from 1,200 to 1,600 and the increase in square footage, which brings the FAR from a 0.109 to a 0.116 to allow for, slightly over 410,000 square feet on the site. And the applicant has demonstrated that the additional students can be accommodated specifically per the queuing plan that you saw presented and that the applicant has agreed to in the event parking plan. And the increase in square footage does not exceed the maximum FAR of the comp plan or pose any compatibility concerns. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to proposed conditions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Jillian Massey, Planning Commission staff. The subject site's located in the residential 20 and residential 6 future land use designation. It's in the urban service area and located within the limits of the Town and Country Community Plan. The subject site's in the urban service area where, according to Objective 1 of the future land use element, 80% of the county's growth is to be directed there. Policy 1.4 requires all new development to be compatible with the surrounding area, noting that compatibility does not mean the same as. Rather, it refers to the sensitivity of the development proposals and maintaining the character of the existing development. The proposed major modification is to allow for the expansion of the existing school in the immediate area, include single-family and multifamily residential development. The proposed educational use would be a complementary residential support use to the surrounding area. The subject site meets the intent of the Town and Country Community Plan. The plan encourages redevelopment and reinvesting to provide meaningful employment opportunities and to the community's sense of place. The applicant's plan to stagger ingress and egress of the students will assist in relieving traffic congestion. The subject site does meet the intent of the community plan, which recognizes the preferred land development pattern. Based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff found the major modification to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department.
All right. Thank you so much. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak in support? Good evening. Thank you for waiting with us.
Of course. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening in favor of Major Modification 24-0805. My name is Kim Lawless, and I live at 611 28th Avenue North, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33704. I've been a member of the Berkeley Preparatory School community for more than 10 years, and over this time I've had the pleasure of serving in a variety of ways. My work as the Assistant Head of School for Strategic Initiatives and Director of the Berkeley Academy allows me the opportunity to consistently and deeply engage with a variety of school stakeholders. I continue to be impressed and inspired by the dedication to service that seems to permeate every aspect of the Berkeley community. While Berkeley is making a positive difference in the lives of others nationally and internationally, it is the school's work in Town and Country where we arguably see the most direct impact. Berkeley not only regularly works with our neighboring organizations to identify authentic needs, but also creates and implements targeted programming to meet those needs. On any given day, one can see Berkeley community members tutoring at Dickinson Elementary, beautifying Sweetwater Park, teaching classes at Town and Country Senior Center, or even joining with students in Town and Country Elementary to paint beautification murals. As a school, we are deeply appreciative of these partnerships and thankful for all of the opportunities to serve in many important ways. We are honored to work with so many Town and Country organizations, schools, and residents, and are humbled by the amount of letters they submitted in favor of this major modification. Our fellow community members have experienced firsthand that an investment in Berkeley is an investment in Town and Country. In fact, it was through the completion of the master plan approved nearly 2 decades ago that Berkeley was able to create the space and resources to launch the Berkeley Academy, a free program for Hillsborough County public school students from low-income families aimed at stopping summer learning loss and helping them achieve their dream of going to college. You will have the opportunity to hear from one of those scholars this evening. Now in its 9th year, the Berkeley Academy has impacted the lives of hundreds of Hillsborough County public school students and through our teacher training program, launched many educators into local classrooms. Increasing Berkeley's maximum student enrollment to 1,600 and adding new, usable square footage to our school will allow us the opportunity to further expand our community-focused programming, increasing our capacity to make a positive difference not only in town and country, but also the greater Tampa Bay community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much. If you could please sign in. Next, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Zoning Hearing Master. My name is Ana Laura Porrapaz, and I live at 8610 Blossom Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33614. I'm a rising 11th grader at Lato High School, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Berkeley. It is an honor to share with you this evening the positive impact Berkeley has had on my life. I have been a member at Berkeley's signature service program, the Berkeley Academy, since I was in middle school. From the moment I joined Berkeley Academy, I knew that it was an environment that would allow me to get out of my comfort zone and grow in a place where I knew I wasn't going to be judged in. Berkeley felt like a safe place where I could go where everyone wanted me to succeed. This was a shock to me, as it's not very common for a place that has as much positivity as the Berkeley Academy does. Every summer, I was excited to come back to Berkeley since I knew they would always have something awaiting for me that would make me feel welcomed and appreciated. I really feel seen at the Berkeley Academy. Now that I'm in the high school college-bound program, the Berkeley Academy has impacted me by allowing me to expand my knowledge on the process of getting into college and which colleges to choose. Without the Berkeley Academy, I would have been completely clueless on different types of grants and scholarships and the differences between colleges. This is so important because Berkeley has great information and resources to share with the scholars, and it makes all the difference. The Berkeley has the power to make my peers and I feel included and let us know that we can go to college. We can graduate. We are capable of doing things that have never been done in our families before. Because of the Berkeley Academy, the scholars can break the chain of having to click a box that says high school or less, and instead build a new chain of clicking boxes that says college. When you support Berkeley, you also support me and hundreds of my peers on that climb to college. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you could please sign in. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Wright, 1211 Northwest Shore Boulevard. I'm here to speak in favor of the major modification. I have been on the board for 8 years and can speak for the Board of Trustees who unanimously support this plan and this modification. Berkeley's under a lot of pressure, as are all schools, to manage the growth and the migration of people coming to the area, managing siblings, legacies, teacher children, and others. And this is a necessary change for us to be able to continue to serve that mission. I think more importantly, I'm also a father of 5 daughters who all attend Berkeley, ranging from 11th grade to pre-K, and can also testify to the intentionality at which Berkeley goes to try to lessen its impact on the neighborhood. Through regular communication and email and otherwise, trying to accommodate high traffic days, and they've made several changes over the years to try to lessen that impact on the surrounding neighborhood. So, in terms of their impact on the community at large, I think I can't do any better than what you just heard firsthand. We strive to not just have a great institution for our community inside the walls of Berkeley, but also at large. So I give my resounding support to this major modification change.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Anyone else that would like to speak in support? All right. Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one. All right. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right. Sir.
Tyler Hudson for the record. Just in closing, Berkeley is a special place. It's been an honor to represent them, and on behalf of Berkeley and the project team, just want to thank Michelle, James Ratliff, and Mike Williams for all their assistance. This is a complex and urgent project, and the fact that we're here on time with all staff support speaks to the hard work that went into this. So thank you for your patience this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate it and your time and testimony. So with that, we'll close major modification 24-0805 and adjourn the hearing. Thank you all so much.